Welcome back, everyone. My name is Darko. Welcome to another episode. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Mike Chang. Now, if you don't know who Mike Chang is, I don't know where you've been living, because Mike has literally been blowing up the internet for the last decade, okay? He is an ex-bodybuilder and he had one of the biggest health and fitness companies in the world, okay? And now he's here with us sharing his new venture, which is, in his words, helping people wake up. So we're going to get into all of his past and all of what he's doing now, because it's super fascinating, super interesting. And if you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with negative thoughts, overthinking, if you're not in the best shape of your life, and if you just feel overwhelmed in your life and stuck, this interview may just change your life. So Michael, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep. So we met actually maybe I think like a year and a half ago in Bali.
Yeah.
Through mutual friend Mike Steele, and what a character that guy is.
Mike.
So we've been hitting it up ever since, and it's been great to get to know you, off the camera, the real Mike Chang.
Yes, and I'm glad we're on here, and this way I can share a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last years now.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, of course, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's going to be a long interview, but I want to get into your childhood real quick, because we know who you are as a person, like what you've been doing online, but I'm curious about how this all came to be. Like, how did you become this amazing, super successful entrepreneur? What was your childhood like?
Well, the interesting thing about that is there's two stories of my childhood, and they're both true. Mm-hmm. And one story is how I was picked on a lot, and I was really, really afraid. And to have more like confidence in myself, I wanted to work out so I can physically be able to defend myself against the gangs that were around where I was living, and to give myself more confident, to like feel better about myself, because I look in the mirror and I'm like the skinny little Asian kid that's getting picked on, that's poor, doesn't have any money. So there's that story. That story was what fueled me to go and to build six-pack shortcuts that people remember a lot of what I did online on YouTube. But then the other story doesn't have any of the pain. It's just, I did exercise, and I was really inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I feel like everybody around my age, and the late 30s, and but everybody loves Arnold. And that's what inspired me to want to go and help people get in shape, because I loved it. It boosted up my confidence, made me feel good. It defied who I was for a very long time. Mm. So, but we'll dive into all that, the stories that we have in our head that defines who we are, and those stories we can actually change.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So when did you get your entrepreneurial flair? Like, where did that come from, do you think? Or when did that happen?
Oh, that was as a kid. As a kid, I already knew I was going to work for somebody. As I got older, if I did, it would just be to make some money to get by. But I didn't see my life as working in a company with all these other people. It didn't feel like that. I knew inside that I'm going to start something on my own, or I'm going to start something, and that's how my life is going to unfold. I don't know what it is. I'm just a kid, but I knew it didn't have to do with any type of corporate type of job. And so I was never really interested in school. When people are like, oh, I want to get a degree. And I was like, well, a degree for me is just so I can have it, but really I don't even care about it. Like, I started working when I was 14. And so I started learning how to make money early. So I was never worried that what would happen if I didn't finish school. It's like, it didn't matter to me, because I always knew I was going to start my own thing, even though when I was young, I didn't know what it was.
And what was the first thing that you started?
Well, so I had a lot of little ventures before Six Pack, like really small ones. They didn't really go anywhere. It was just testing out the waters, Like, for example, I wanted to start a a fitness company, but it wasn't doing it online. I was going to do it in person, and try to find a way to, leverage my time and hire other trainers and, stuff like that. I got into MLMs before for a little while as well. And, they promise you can have your own business under our business. And I was like, okay, and, it was in real estate, learning how to buy properties and generate cash flow from it. So it's like stuff like that. And they all interest me. But the one thing I wanted to do growing up, was to combine business that I was interested in and also fitness. And I didn't know how to combine it. And before Six Pack, I was on the path towards creating a fitness company that was going to be in person, but it didn't get really far because there was so many moving parts. And I was like, let me just take a step back and see what else type of opportunities, because I wanted to leverage my time. I knew I was studying business, and, I remember back in the day is, the whole time for money thing. And I'm like, yes, that makes total sense. But I didn't know how to be able to scale it to be bigger and bigger. And even the model that I knew didn't work out. And it wasn't until I started to learn about internet marketing and this idea of, 24-hour storefront. This is before online businesses was really popular, over a decade ago. And then my mind was set that I'm going to create something like that, even though I had no idea how to do it. And I just knew someday it's going to happen and I'm going to move towards that direction. And then it wasn't until 3 years and 2 jobs later that I actually started Six Pack. But it was just like I had the vision in my head and I knew it was going to happen. And then I just surrendered to the fact that I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to. And then I just went with the flow with it.
So you mentioned there you wanted to blend business and and fitness, but you didn't know how. You didn't know how to scale it, right?
Yeah.
Because it was just like using your time, and you started learning about business, and you're like, oh, actually, having an online storefront is better than being a personal trainer in a gym.
Yeah, because everybody I talked to, they're like, well, here's how you're going to do fitness and business, and it was all of the old model before online businesses became popularized. And so all of those models didn't seem to scale the way I wanted to scale. There's still just so many moving parts, so many complications. And I was like, there's got to be another way to do it. But I didn't know until I learned about internet marketing. And I go, this is how it could be done. And I didn't have a lot of examples to go off of. But I was lucky enough to partner up with my partner that did have a lot of experience in it. And so the combination of his business experience and internet marketing experience and my fitness and vision, combined with tons of hard work.
So that's interesting. So you had this dream, this goal, but you didn't know how it was going to happen. And you surrendered to that, right? You wasn't concerned with how it's going to happen. Did you know that it was going to happen, but you just didn't know how? Did you have that belief?
I did have that belief because about 6 years before that, I learned about the law of attraction. And when I learned about it, I basically came to the understanding that I can create whatever I want. And I have been creating everything that I've wanted based on the belief that I have in my head and based on the thoughts that I think about and what I can see in my mind. That was my understanding at the time. So after that, everything that I was creating in my life was exactly what I was able to see in my head. So when internet marketing came up and I knew this is what I want to do, I knew that I would be able to do it, but I didn't know how. But I realized that it didn't matter because that was part of what I understood at the time about law of attraction. Now it's my understanding has deepened a lot. So parts of what I knew is still very helpful, but there's a lot more now than before, because this was actually literally almost 10 years ago. Actually, more over 10 years ago. So the last 12 to 13 years now since I even had that realization, a lot has changed. I learned a lot more. And so now the idea of law of attraction is just one aspect. I can break that down into a whole bunch of pieces to help somebody actually have a fuller understanding. But back then, I just needed the basic understanding of, if I believe it's going to happen, I can think about it, and I put vision boards everywhere in my room, it'll happen. And it did, you know?
Yeah. So talk to us about how you met your business partners. Like, was that just by chance, or did you already know? How did that happen?
So I can say nothing is actually by chance.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting in and of itself, because a lot of people, I used to think this too. I don't think it anymore. I believe what you believe now, but I used to believe that, oh yeah, it's by just luck, you know, it's
Coincidence.
Coincidence.
It's like, so no, just because I didn't control the everything that happened that worked up to the meeting, didn't mean it was by chance. You know, did I control it? No, I didn't control it. I didn't know it was going to happen. But was it by chance? No, it wasn't. I reconnected with a friend of mine, and we haven't chatted for a couple years. And he's a good friend. And, you know, we're the type of friends that when we connect, we're good friends, that we may come together for a year or two and really share our life and get involved in different things. Then we kind of go, okay, well, cool, this time is done. Then we branch off and we don't really stay in contact for a few years. And then we come together again.
Right.
We've done that since I was 22.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a while now. So I reconnect with him. And he goes, Mike, check out what I'm doing. Cool. He goes, yeah, you know, this is awesome. So he's the one that first told me about internet marketing. You know, hey, you know, again, you know, you can make money online, and here's how it works. And it just blew my mind. And when I went to his place, I met one of his friends and his business partner, which later on became mine. But I didn't know it at the time. I was like, hey, hello, meeting people. And then I just started learning about what he was doing. You know, that's how we met.
Right. So at the time, so you basically leveraged your own existing network, basically reconnecting with an old friend.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm saying that because a lot of people, they're watching this and then maybe they're like you, they have this idea, but they don't know how to go about implementing it. Right.
Right.
And so what you did is you just leveraged your network, and then that gave you an opportunity, which you were then able to meet your business partner, which of course you didn't know that at the time, but you can connect the dots looking back now. That's what you did, right?
That's what I did. And different people are built differently. And so the way that they manifest, the way that they create things in their life is different. For example, somebody, the way they manifest might be to go and reach out to their network. They're the type of person that, and I say type very loosely, it's more like their genetic makeup, their energetic makeup, their mind makeup allows them to, that's how they create all of their opportunities, all of their stuff is through their network. And then you got some other type that they create a resume. They go out and just search and just, you know, go into places that they don't know anybody, and they can manifest that way. So depending on somebody's type, they want to follow what they're designed to do. So this way they can be able to create the fastest. Because a lot of times people go, if they listen to this and they go, wow, so this is right, I'm going to do it that way. But maybe their design doesn't align the best. And so when they try this way, it's so hard. But so they should find out like what are the best ways that they should operate. That's the interesting thing about advice now. You know, if 10 years ago, I would have been, yep, this is exactly how you do it. Fast forward now, yeah. I'm like, okay, hey, you know, we are actually all very different. Right. And the way I did it is what worked for me. And it's not that there is all these infinite amount of ways. There are, I can say maybe like a handful of ways, but somebody wants to find which is the best way for them to approach it. You know, and it could be reach out to your network. It could be, wait for opportunities to come in, and you can just say yes or no. So you don't actually have to go and try to look for everything. You just wait for things to land on your plate. Hence a text message, hence an invite, hence you're walking, you meet somebody and you say hello and they go, hey, you know, there's a thing going on. You want to come? Right. And you wait for these things to happen. Or you can be the type of person that initiates, start things up. And you just go, I want to do this. And you call up your friends, you tell everybody about it, and they all come. And then something gets created from it, you know? So somebody needs to understand the type of person they are if they want to pinpoint it. If not, they will eventually find out anyways, because they just do it through trial and error, which a lot of people do. Something I'm actually studying on now is how to be able to pinpoint specifically the approach that somebody can make. Because I'm always looking for faster, more effective ways. Hence, when I started Six Pack Shortcuts, that was the idea. Yeah, there's all these ways to get a six pack, but what's the most fastest way? What is the one thing that we can do? Therefore, by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. And then now I'm looking at consciousness in the same way. How do we go ahead and hack into consciousness? Therefore, if we're talking about manifesting something, yes. If we're talking about transformation, yes. How do we do it the fastest, most efficient? Instead of just going, these are the general ideas. Now everybody go towards that direction. And over time, you kind of find out what works and what doesn't. Well, how can we shrink it? You know?
So it's like efficiency for you. It's like the one thing.
Efficiency, effectiveness. You know, because people have motivation. Then if they don't get the results they want, the motivation goes away. And then they have to wait for that next spear of motivation. But what happens if they can understand a little more about themselves? So now all the effort that they put in creates more results versus having to do 20 tries and land one. Maybe they only have to do 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what you're talking about here is self-awareness, right? And so how did you cultivate self-awareness, and how do you advise other people do it? Because people are probably watching, because I know I sometimes, think about self-awareness. I'm like, all right, so how do I actually do that? Is there any practical things you can share with people real quick?
So one way to do that is to look at what we actually have done in the past, not look at and think this is what I did, but just look at what we actually did, what we did and what we thought of. That's like a simple first step. What was I thinking? I want to do this. Okay. And what happened? I did this or I did that. It's like somebody who wants to exercise and get in shape. They go, okay, what was I thinking? I want to get in shape. What happened? Didn't happen. I skipped out. I joined the gym. It didn't work out. I didn't go. And then I hired a trainer. I went for it. And then I skipped and then I canceled it, whatever. Okay. Then what happened? I wanted to get in shape. Then what happened? I still didn't do it. Why? Because of this, it's this. So now if we see this happening 4 or 5 times, and now we're in the present moment and the person goes, I want to get in shape. So if they were just to not think about the past and go, well, here's what I'm going to do, then they're just going in blind. Now, if they were to look at the past and go, this is actually what happened when I had a similar thought in the past, and here's exactly what I did. Here's what happened. And they look at as many experiences as possible. What this does is it allows them to understand an aspect of themselves by seeing what actually is happening versus the belief that they have, right? Someone goes, I want to get in shape. Oh, but actually I'm just a lazy person and, and my genetics, I'm looking at my dad and my mom. But then when they look at what happened, they realize in reality, they say it, but they keep sabotaging themselves and had nothing to do with it. They don't have the motivation. They just create things that directly, stops them from making it happen. And they start to see it. And then so once they start to understand why this is happening on all the levels, like their beliefs, their language, the habits that they actually do all the time to sabotage themselves, now they can go, okay, well, I really want to make this thing happen. And I want to now see what can I do to plan ahead and to avoid the distractions. What do I need to create or ask for help on to give me the support that I need? What do I need to avoid? Because every time I always go down that direction and it always happens, I see it. So they start to understand about themselves. So this is just really basic. It sounds so straightforward. And I think people listening will be like, yeah, of course. But how many people are doing it? And if they were to do that, they would come into some facts about themselves that they're not getting from other people. Somebody doesn't go, hey, this is how you are. No, you are looking at your own life going, this is what I actually am doing, coming from what is happening, not what an expert says I should do, because we're so different. This is like, right. And the way they would come into realization of who they are and what they are about at this moment, that way of coming to it is so much more powerful than to learn it from somebody else. somebody go, based on what I've seen, here's what I think you are. That's so different than somebody coming into realization of it themselves. It's so much more impactful. It sticks. And they also can use this process of contemplation, this process of realization, this process of asking ourselves certain questions. They can use it for the rest of their life. Because that's a big thing for people, is people think that they are a way, and then there's the actual truth of what they actually are. And it's very, very different. And if somebody wants to have control of their life, they want to transform something, and they want to accomplish something, they got to look at the component they got to look at themselves and understand who they are, what they're about, so they can create the best outcome, because it's them that's doing the work. But most people don't ask these questions. So they never know. So they don't know who they are. They only have an idea of who they are. They think they are this. And based on the thought that they think, based on what they think, they go, I'm going to do it this way.
Right.
It's just, it's shooting in the wind. And we only got a certain amount of time. Every years are passing by quickly, and, life is evolving. And you don't have infinite amount of motivation, inspiration, and time. You got a certain window to really, really crank it out. And, life evolves. If you're in your 20s, you have a different motivation versus when you're in your 40s and 50s. So yes, you can just keep going out for the rest of your life, but we change. We change with time. And if you really want this to happen now, you don't have 10, 15, 20 years. You need to go and do everything as effective as you can to make it happen now. And that involves the basic thing of understanding how you tick, understanding how your thoughts actually, understanding your habits, so you can plan accordingly, so you can actually do the right things.
And do you feel like that's where your power comes from? Because you did this early on in your life. Like you mentioned, you started working at 14. And so do you feel like you were in tune with who you were at an early age, which enabled you to start business early?
A certain part, just I would say bits and pieces. And then over time, I accumulated a little more and a little more. And when I started Six Pack, I knew enough of who I was to have it grow the way it did. But it didn't give me what I really wanted. And so that's what people ultimately are wanting. They're wanting a certain sense of satisfaction, of fulfillment, of happiness by the goals that they're looking to accomplish. And if they don't get it, then there wouldn't be a point in doing it, because that's their ultimate reason. But they believe that they're going to get it, because of whatever belief, and then they strive and spend this time to do it. And then now they spend all this time, and when they do accomplish it and they don't get what they want, they think maybe, I just need to do something. I need to do a little more of it. And so those are they sound the same, but they're really two different things. And I think we're in a time now to where there's a lot of people that go, both is actually very important. It's important for me to do what it is that I enjoy and to accomplish goals that I want. But most importantly, though, I got to make sure that when I do accomplish my goals, that these goals are actually going to bring me more happiness. And when they start to dive down that path, the first thing that is very obvious that they're going to run into is you don't become happier when you accomplish your goals. You become happier when you use your goals as the vehicle to become the person that you were meant to be. And then you become a happier person. In other words, you become a happier person by using your goals as the vehicle. Because if we sit here and we go, I want to be a happy person. Okay, good. So what are you going to do? Well, I don't have any goals, so I'm not going to do anything, but I want to be a happy person. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're happy? So this person's like trying to create happiness, but they don't have anything to direct their energy to do anything with. So that's where the idea of goals are so important. So this way it gives them the vehicle of a purpose towards it. But people get misunderstood and they think it's the goal that they need to accomplish. The goal just gives you direction. It's the person that they are becoming, that they are changing as they are accomplishing the goal. Because the goal, when they have a direction, now they have challenges that come up. But without the direction, we can't create these challenges. We sit here in this room and do nothing. No challenges and obstacles are gonna come up. So then we go, let's create a goal. We're gonna do this. And now these goals, all these challenges and obstacles and all this stuff starts to come up. And for us to overcome it, develops who we are. And then as we start to let go of all the fears and all this stuff, because we are running into all of these challenges and obstacles, the more we let go, the more fulfilled we are inside, the stronger that we are, the less fearful that we are. And now we are becoming happier. Whether or not we moved forward a lot in the goal or we didn't. But if a person is only looking at the goal, then they don't try to change themselves. They don't try to evolve themselves. And if they accomplish the goal, nothing changes in their life. You see?
Because they're so focused on the outcome, on that goal.
Right.
So for you started, so for context, for anyone watching, you started Six Pack Shortcuts. You had 2 business partners, I believe, right?
We started at 1, and then the second one jumped on about like 2.5 years in, something like that.
Right. And so you started this company with your business partner, and then you later had 3 business partners, and you guys were making millions per year. At the height, were you doing like 7 million a year or something? Year 5, 7 million, something like that.
Like 13.
Yeah, exactly. So you're making multiple millions of dollars every year. You had this dream to become the biggest health company in America, right? The fitness company. Mm-hmm. Your eyes were set on Beachbody, and you were going for that, right? Mm-hmm. And also you applied that same thinking to YouTube. You wanted to have the biggest YouTube channel. You accomplished that goal. Mm-hmm. And how did that change you as a person, like accomplishing these goals and having these big, these big dreams being realized, like you're making millions?
It made me realize that I can do exactly what I want to do. Mm. And so that wasn't just a thought. It was a real life belief. I embodied that state. I can do whatever I want. So it felt good, but that belief alone was not enough. And so I would tell people that and inspire them. Yeah, go after what you want, all this stuff. But on the inside, I was very stressed out. I had massive problems in my relationship. I kept complaining in my mind about things. And my body was starting to break down. I was having injuries that wouldn't heal anymore. And I understood the body inside and out, when it comes to bodybuilding and fitness and rehab stuff. And I couldn't fix it, and I didn't understand why. And my mind was starting to break down as well. Schizophrenia was coming on, and was losing my ability to understand complex conversations. But I still believed that I can do whatever I want. And I had plenty of money, fame, respect, plenty of friends, great looking body. But what was happening on the inside, which I didn't say much of it. I didn't let a lot of people know because nobody knew. I was too ashamed.
That Six Pack Shortcuts guy can't be suffering from depression.
No, can't tell people that. What are they gonna think? Our views will go down. No, I need to look a certain way, act a certain way. Everything's great. Yeah. And look at the facade.
Yeah.
But no, that was actually happening on the inside. And so it's almost like that's half the equation. It's very important for somebody to believe that they can accomplish what they want. So this way they let go of the self-doubt and go for it. But there is a whole entire mountain on the other side that's called fulfillment, happiness, being yourself. That's also important too. And then when we combine the two together, we start to come together closer to living a fully extraordinary life that all people want, this life of freedom and this sense of like happiness that's in every person, no matter who it is and what they're looking to get on the outside. Everybody wants a very similar thing on the inside. And this path of being able to obtain these two things, it allows people to do that. But in reality, to be able to understand who somebody really is, that will trump over the ability to create exactly what they want. Because once somebody is fulfilled on the inside, they don't care so much to create things on the outside anymore. They're full. It's like if they're full, why would they keep wanting more food? It's like you just drank glasses and glasses of water and somebody offers you more glasses. You're like, no, thank you, I'm good. Well, you should, okay, fine, put it on the side, I'll store it for a rainy day. And then after a certain amount, you're like, actually, I've got plenty of water stored. I just don't need it. I'm so not thirsty.
Yeah. Well, where's the balance here? Because a lot of people watching, they believe that you have to have some sort of drive to achieve, right? Which is true. So I speak to a lot of achievers like yourself, and a lot of them say, yeah, but if I didn't have that happen to me, if I didn't want these things, I would never have had the drive. If I was, like you say, full, I had enough water, I'm not thirsty, where's the drive come from to create $1 million business?
Well, then I would ask the question, why do you want to create $1 million business? For what? Oh, so I can have financial security. So you need to have $1 million to have financial security. Because, okay, well, before you say yes, 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 and all these reasons, which I'm sure you have them in your head, right? Okay, good. Let's look at, remember how in the beginning we talked about what we actually do and understand what we do, what we think. Let's look at the truth again. So it's not I tell you this is the best way to be. Don't listen to me, right? It doesn't matter. You need to live your life the way you want. But you don't want to live your life with blinders. You don't want to be like this. I only see a small lane and everything else that is in my life, I don't want to look at because I'm afraid, because I don't care. No, you should look at it so you understand what is the effects of what you do. What is the effects of what you say? What's the effect of striving to create all of that? What are you actually creating an effect on in the people in your life? In the planet. So now if a person actually looks, nobody needs to tell them this is good or bad. You just look. And if a person actually does that, then they can actually see the ripple effect of what they do. So this person that's really wanting to make this $1 million business. Well, $1 million business is not just you don't accidentally make $1 million. You gotta work your butt off.
You're right.
You gotta plan, you gotta do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So then you gotta sacrifice a lot, And whoever says you don't have to sacrifice, just have a balance. Yeah, you don't have $1 million business. Let's bring the $1 million business people on here and ask them, wait, what you have to do? Yeah, I had to work my butt off. I had to say no to so many things so I can say yes to my $1 million business. So what happens when I say no to those things? When I say no to my mom, when I say no to my sister, when I say no to my wife, when I say no to my kid, when I say no to this event, when I say no to that, when I say no to my health, when I say no to this healthy food, because et cetera, et cetera. So then we start to look at the effect of what it is that we want or what it is that we have done so far. And nobody needs to tell you this is right or wrong. There's no right and wrong. Nobody's going to ever really know what is right and what's wrong, right? It's different for each person. But if a person can look at what they are actually doing and the effect of it, then they can assess themselves. Is this good for my life? Is this what I should be doing? Yes, go do it. Because maybe they should. But if they look at it and they go, it's not worth it. Okay, then don't. You see, this way it goes from this idea that this is the way everybody should be. This is the way they should all act. Here's the way they should look. And that is all box thinking. We're in a world now to where consciousness is expanding and people are waking up. With all the COVID stuff happening, people are going, there's something weird going on in this world. So people are starting to wake up to look at what this is crazy. What else is going on? So the thing that they need to look at now is what are the actions? What are the effects of what they are doing? If I want this goal, what does that really mean in my life? And then when they start to really look at the ripple effect, Now, here's something else to actually assess what's happening. Mm-hmm. So now we see the ripple effect of it. Okay, here's what I need to sacrifice.
Yeah.
We live in this body, and we like to, all marketers and all business people know that people like to gravitate towards pleasure, and they like to move away and avoid pain, right? That's how it works in life for pretty much every person. So if somebody wants to move away from pain and move towards pleasure, it means they got to be able to feel. So a person needs to be able to feel. If they aren't feeling, how would they be able to know and make good decisions based on what they're thinking? Well, that's half the equation. But our thinking can be all over the place. If our thinking was correct, then every single decisions that we have made was right on, spot on. And any person can laugh at that comment. So our thinking is not always right. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But we need to use another tool, another way to properly know whether or not we should say yes to this thing or no to this thing. And it's through feeling. We can feel our body, and if our body feels good, this is a yes. And if it feels not good, even if I don't understand it here, I need to listen to my body. My body says no because I can feel it. But now, if I can't feel it, then I can only use my mind and the infinite amount of reasons I can come up with. So now we have a problem because a lot of people are walking around and they can't feel because they have numbed their bodies through all of the substances and all of the habits and losing connection to their nervous system, right? Their central nervous system's all messed up because they're in fight and flight mode constantly. So they can't, their system's not reading things. So they can't feel all this pain constantly because they won't even be able to function. So their body's protection mechanism goes, we're going to stop, we're going to lower our sensitivity and feeling. Because if we were to feel all this stuff that's happening, we're going to feel this cancer that's growing in that person, right? 1 out of 3 people have cancer. It's kind of a problem right now. So no, our body goes, no, we can't feel that much because there's too much stuff going on. You would die from feeling all this pain. So then people lose the ability to feel. And now it hinders their ability to be able to decide. And all life is just decisions. Deciding choices and decisions at every moment that dictates our life, but they don't have their ability to feel to help them decide. So now people are so confused. People are confused about what they want. They're confused about what they want to do. They're confused about all this stuff. But what happens if they can not be confused anymore because their mind is saying 5 different things and their body is going, I feel bad about this. I feel good about this. And the other 3 things, so. So if I listen to my body, I just go with the one that feels good. And they start to help them decide on so many aspects of their life. And then their mind can actually go and process the decision. But their mind doesn't have to be the one that's constantly deciding because there is infinite intelligence inside the body that we don't access. Because we can't feel. The people that can feel, they understand this and they use it as a way to help guide them. It's like a person not having a compass and they don't know where the heck they're at and they're trying to think their way, but you have no idea. You've never been here before. And right now, that's where people are in their life because they don't know the future. They've never been there. So we're always in the new territory and nobody wants to keep creating old stuff, right? We want a new project, new this. I want to try this new thing, but you've never done it. So how are you going to know? And you're going to use your old information, but your old information, how do you know it's even correct? And you're so influenced by all this stuff because like what we talked about, you don't even know what works and what. So the ability to feel, not only does it help people make decisions, help people move forward in entrepreneurship and building $1 million business or building a $250,000 business, but the ability to feel also allows them to feel. People want to feel pleasure. They don't want to feel pain. What's worse? Not feeling anything. And that's where we are at. People don't feel much. And when they do feel, it's pain. So they don't want to feel it. And so now you got these walking zombies, you got these walking robots. This is kind of like, and then now you ever talk to somebody and they're just like, oh, this is how it is, this is how it is. just looking at them, you're like, man, they're not even there. Really, dude, chill out, relax. And you see their bodies all like, and it's like, they're so disconnected to their body. All right. And you can tell this person doesn't have a sense of calmness. There's no sense of centeredness inside of them. They are not fully there. Mm. So if a person can feel, it would help them make decisions. It would help them to know whether or not they should go for this $1 million business or go for something else. It would help them actually feel good, because that involves still feeling. And now they can use this new way to help them understand about themselves, because now they see what it is that they've done and they have an idea in their mind about it, but they also have now the ability to feel. So their mind says it was just, they deserved what I did. And their body goes, oh man, you fucked up. you need to apologize. That doesn't feel good at all. You're like, there's a disagreement. Let me look into it further. Which one is right? Why do I think this way? And then we start to understand why we think this way. And then why do I feel this way? And then we can come to a truth. That's all it is. It's like, right, the truth will set you free. And we shouldn't really go and try to listen to all these other people's truths. We should just go and find out for ourselves. And when we do, that level of knowingness about who we really are, what we're really about, that is the most satisfactory. That is the power that people want, that they need to take back control of their life and accomplish whatever they want. Mm.
Yeah, it resonates with me on so many levels, because recently I've been thinking about this very thing you're talking about, asking myself these questions, getting in tune with how I feel. And actually I stopped coaching. I stopped my coaching because I just started feeling like, this is not what I like coaching, but I was like, I just didn't feel like I was in alignment anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was something more that I could be adding to this world, and also why I started. And again, asking myself the questions of, why did I even start going on the internet and sharing my voice? Why did I do that? Like what you're saying. And the reason for me was just to inspire and motivate people to live an amazing life. That was it, like very simply. And however I did that, like I started doing that in health. But that's the goal for me, is to just inspire and motivate people to, and by doing that, I'm living and leading by example, right? So yeah, the self-introspection is really important. And I feel like you did that very early on. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is the going back into the little details of the business side of things, because some people are watching. For example, one of my friends, he asked me a question about business for you, because people are watching and they're like, all right, you built this business and you're doing really well. You're helping people get a six pack, and you had so many millions of people that you've impacted with your content, your products, your videos. And how did you then, make that decision to sell it? Like, what happened? What was that whole story?
So the decision to leave was made in an instant. I felt how it was like to disconnect from my ego, from fear. And when I became unfearful, I had the realization that everything that I've done in my life was all driven through fear. The worries, the stress, all the problems, they were all made up. They were all just literally in my head. They weren't actually real. They were only real to me because my mind kept thinking about it and it allowed me to only see all the problems in my life. That perspective, that state of mind, when I had that realization, what happened from that is a sense of joy and happiness and bliss beyond anything I can ever describe. So there are certain words that people will use to do their best to kind of describe this state. We can say that I experienced like a state of oneness. And at that time, when that was happening, my mind expanded and I started to understand everything in my life. And this state of time was for 2 weeks. And during this 2 weeks, I was just blissed out. I understood everything. I walked into my business and I knew exactly what we needed to do and why and how it would improve everything instantly. There wasn't like I had to figure it out. I knew. I was able to feel any room, any picture, it doesn't matter what it was. I get to walk into a room. Like if I walked into this room at that time, I will be able to know what is the emotion that that person has because I can feel the energy in this room. This opened up. And what it allowed me to realize was, number one, and the most important thing was that was something I wanted to maintain. I didn't want to lose that. My state of mind, the amazing feeling, we talked about moving towards pleasure. This is beyond pleasure. I had a lot of pleasure in my life. This is nothing compared to that. That's like peanuts. And I didn't even know what was happening, but I wanted it. I wanted to keep it. And so I decided that whatever it took, I'm going to do my best to maintain this state, understand it, continue it, and then I'm going to teach everybody else how to do it because everybody wants this. They just don't know it. Some people do, most people don't. Most people are chasing the $1 million business, just like I was. But they don't know that they want this. But once they can have a taste of it, they will never want to let it go. So I told my partners, like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna dive into this. It's gonna be the next level thing. We got all this audience. It's gonna be great. But they weren't really open to it. They want to stay on track with fitness. And they're like, oh, that's not what we do. It's too big of a chance. It's a different market. They're not gonna understand it. So I understood. I go, you know what? That is true. I understand. Okay. Well, I'm committed towards that direction because I realized nothing else would create the level of happiness. And I want to strive towards this direction. So let's find out a way for me to exit out the company. And they were very surprised. But they respected the fact. They're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. And then so fast forward, it took almost about a year to go and figure out how to do it because I was the face of the company, even though we did have some other people come in to record videos and programs. We were already in that phase of having other people along with me because not for the sale before, but just because we were looking at scalability. And I was telling you, we want to build a very massive company. It requires more scaling, reach more audience, all this stuff. I couldn't be the only person in front of the camera and running like 7 departments as well. So we were in the process already. So now we just sped up that process and took a whole year to implement everything, to come to an agreements on terms. And from there, I signed the papers and I was done. But during that 1 year, I didn't work that much. I was probably maybe the next couple months half-assed because I was so determined to find out what happened that I put all of my energy in there. And I just started sharing it with everybody, but most people didn't really understand what I was talking about. I didn't really understand what I was talking about. So then fast forward, the sale was done. That's how it's happened. But to answer, if there are all the other people that are kind of in this model of being the teacher, the face of the company, and they want to exit out, if that's something they want to do, well, you gotta replace yourself. If not, your company doesn't have enough value because you're taking away the thing that people are coming for, So you gotta, before you decide, if you even have an idea that you want to walk out, start finding some good personality, start finding your replacement, and when somebody does this, here's what's going to happen. They're gonna go, that person's not like me. They're not as good as me. They can't do exactly right. They're not supposed to, they're, and now, when we talked about have a goal and then now you're going to face challenges and obstacles that allows you to grow. Well, let's say that's one of them. You know how much challenges it is to go ahead and have a person who's the face, who's the brand, now bring in somebody else and just put that person on this golden platter because they are now just going, it's like Dre going, hey, Eminem, this dude here, he's now in the spotlight. And it's like, you just came from nothing to everything. Not nothing, but
Yeah.
it's like, and that's what this person would have to do. And how disturbing it is for their own ego and, oh, they don't deserve it. And maybe this and maybe, well, you got to let all that go. If you want to gain what you want, if you want to have more time, if you want to be able to sell it in the future, if you want to be able to scale, if you want to have another life outside of, your business, you need to find a way to start stepping out. It's important for people. And if somebody decides that, no, this is who I am and I'm going to do this forever, cool. Then when the forever is done and you decide you change your mind, well, then you may not get much for it. It is what it is. It's okay. You developed yourself as a person, you made money during it, and so be it. But that's where somebody gets into it to where, are you building a business or are you building a lifestyle? What are you really building? That question.
So when you started out the Six Pack Shortcuts, did you have any end goal in mind? Do you say, oh, I'm going to sell this company in a few years, or was it just purely because you wanted? What was the goal that got you started?
The first goal was, I want to make $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And woo, if I do that, man, I can kick my feet back.
Yeah.
So then 6 months later, we started, 6 months of working. And then 6 months later, we started taking orders. And then about like 6-7 months later, we were there. And we were like, let's create another goal. Yeah, we should do like 25, 30,000.
Well, you were there, meaning you were at $1 million after 6-7 months?
No, like I was making, like we were making 15,000
for
me,
15K
so
right.
we're like about 20 something, 30,000 a month already. Like we hit a $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if we hit it once, we can hit it again because we saw how we did it.
Yeah.
We're like, wow, okay, let's create another goal. All right. So then the goals just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I remember just one day after we created, this was like after creating 4 other goals and hitting the goal after like every 3 months or so, we hit the goal. And we were like, man, these goals are supposed to be long-term goals. They're not like the next 3 months. No, that's like, oh man, yeah, we can reach that. That will be really good for the company. 3 months later, we hit it. We're like, we're not shooting high enough. We're not shooting high enough. That's the issue. The issue is not, we are so good at what we do. No, we are just creating wrong goals, So we need to create a goal that's big enough. So this way we don't hit it in 3 months and having to now shift and find a new way. We need to have a farther goal, a bigger goal. So then we said, we're going to do $1 million a month. At that time, we were doing anywhere like, I think, maybe like 100, 120 or 150 or something. But like that's like 10x. Per month, not like 1 month, per month. How do you maintain it? You got to set up all this infrastructure. And we were like, yeah, whoa, yeah, that would be a good goal. Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that sounds good. And then from there, we're like, okay, so how are we gonna do that? And then we started shifting everything to make sure we hit that goal. So then fast forward, like 2 years later, 2.5 years later, we were hitting that goal. That's when, or maybe it was like 3. I think it was probably more like about 3 years later. We were hitting that goal. But before even hitting the goal, there was already a new goal.
What was the new goal?
500 million.
Whoa.
Not per month.
Right. That was the Beachbody. That's how much they were making at the time.
That's how much they were making. Yeah. Because we met with them, we met with the owners, we went to California and, they wanted to learn from us on ads. They wanted to figure out what we were doing for traffic because we were really, really good at traffic. Thanks to my partner, not me. And we wanted to learn how to get into TV space because they were dominating all the TV ads and doing really well in it. So it's like this little trade-off, and it never panned out, So, but during that time, we found out what numbers they were doing and all this stuff, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to go and be the biggest company. And so these goals that we were making, it was just this limited belief of like, what we really wanted was we were wanting to go and feel good about ourselves. We were wanting to increase our self-worth. But instead of saying that out loud, because we didn't really know, because we don't look at what we actually do in our life and why. We just go, I want to make 10 to 15. But at some point it becomes, I want to be the best. It's like, I don't want, it's like, there's only number one. There's only one number one. We want to be number one. And it was first, we're going to be number one in the country. And then after that, we're going to be number one in the world in our category before we branch into another category. That's the goal now. And then we started game planning. How are we going to do that? First, it was, okay, first we need to get to 500 million. How are we going to do it? So then I created this plan on how we can hit like maybe about 200 million. And I know we can hit it because I had it all planned out. I know we're going to run into roadblocks, but I crunched numbers. It would work. I've done this over and over and over and over. And it worked every time. It's not rocket science, on how to make more money. It's just, there's only certain components, sell more product, more traffic, all this stuff. So we created that. We created the idea of like, okay, we're going to strive for it. We're going to do this, and the plans were in place. We were in a 6,500 square feet office at the time. It was our third office already, right? Third, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, third. We already had the new office planned out because that's how we were going to scale. We were doing phone sales. That was part of the revenue stream. We had this whole sales funnel, how we did everything. And that would be able to hold a lot of people. We had about 40 something salespeople just on the sales side, right? It's not including the marketing team and all the other people. And I was going to expand it out to 200. And I was running the phone team, and then we were going to get leads from other people. We were only using our leads. So then, traffic conversion and delivery of product. So how do we increase traffic? Get more leads, right? Or drive more traffic online. Well, that was going to continue, and then we're going to amplify with more traffic from other people, hence get their leads, so we can increase the ROI or increase the lifetime value of. So then nobody else had phone teams, so we were really, really good at it. We invested a lot of money and time and training systems and all this stuff. So that was going to just level us to a whole nother bracket. So we needed a space. We needed to set the program, like the training programs, because turnover rates were really high. How do we motivate the people? How do we create like the CRM softwares to be able to go and handle more leads, more volumes without getting totally jumbled up in the back end? So we set up all this stuff, and now the next piece is we needed to get into the office. So then I started going in, and it's like, all right, we're going to break down this wall, add this, because I love doing that stuff, And so the build out was happening. It was almost done. And then I experienced that shift in consciousness that woke me up. And then I realized, yeah, I don't care about 500 million. Yeah, it's what's the point, Like, no, that's nothing. That's like silly. It's like, what I want is just to maintain what I'm experiencing now. That is better than what anybody can ever, what I can ever do. So I had that awakening, and I realized that nothing I can do on the outside was going to create more happiness. And I didn't have this lack of self-worth, this needing to prove anymore, because I was able to see exactly where it came from. And I realized that it was just fear, and it wasn't just an idea. I experienced how it's like to not have it. It's totally different, And when I experienced it and I had that sense of happiness and all these things, I realized that's what I want. That is the key to life. This is what I really want inside. And all of these goals that I'm creating on the outside is just because I think I think accomplishing these goals would get me what it is that I just received already. So why would I go and chase after that goal when I already got it now? This is what I want.
So what did that feel like? So you had this shift. Mm-hmm. Did you do anything to get this shift that you had?
Oh, yeah. I've been doing yoga for about 2.5 years. I've been meditating about 3 times a week for about 5 minutes every time. Well, it's not much, but it helped. It did help. And the yoga was about 3 to 4 times a week for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so every time. And I had motivation to figure out what was going on with me. My mind was starting to deteriorate. I was borderline schizophrenia. I was starting to see shit in front of me. I was having problems understanding my managers during our meetings. I couldn't understand complex situations. I couldn't balance and connect dots together anymore. And I had a tremendous amount of pain in my body that wouldn't go away. No matter what stuff I knew how to do, couldn't make it go away, and I didn't know why. All the other stress, I was able to handle it. But these things, it was stopping my ability to work. Can't understand people. All right. I'm in a fitness company, but I am constantly in pain. I couldn't hold out a 20-pound dumbbell. Too much pain for my back. The pain was in my lower back, right side. So I had a lot of motivation to figure that out. And all I knew was it had something to do with my stress. That was it. Couldn't be anything else. All the rehab stuff I knew how to do, doing it, didn't go away. So I went to this event in Utah, and it was like a not marketing. It was more like a kind of a more like a social gathering event. People do talks and stuff, like a mastermind type of place, but super chill. And the last day of the event, it was 4 days. The last day of the event, I started to gain some really powerful insights from a few of the talks. I remember Marissa Peer. She did a talk on, she does the hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
So she was there, some really awesome people was there. And she was there. She did a talk on not being enough, and with her, I think, British accent or something. And it was cool. And I remember after she said that, I thought to myself and realized, wow, I don't think I'm enough. And then another friend of mine, Jesse Elder, and he did a talk. It was on ethical cult building. I remember like the title. I was like, what? I don't know what this is going to be about, but you know what? He could do the splits, so I loved it. Yeah. He started off like just dropping into the splits, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So he did a talk, and really, really awesome points, big takeaways. But the biggest one was, got to stop caring about what people thought of you. Because if you do, you can't be authentic. You can't be yourself. You're just pretending. You're being fake. So I was like, of course, that makes sense. I was really big on authenticity at the time. I was even telling people to be authentic. And so I thought to myself, okay, so I'm gonna, do I care about what other people think? And I was like, well, no, I'm totally myself, And then I kept thinking, and I thought about one thing. I go, oh yeah, here when I'm doing videos and stuff, I always do so many takes because I'm so afraid about, what somebody will think if I messed up here, or if my hair looks funny, or I'm like, okay, so I do care about that. Oh, and I also care about if I have a little extra fat because I need to be super rich, but I ate a burger last night, and and also I care about, and one by one, I started racking it up. And once I opened it up, and I remember once I got to like number 8 or 10, I was like, whoa. I care like crazy. I care like crazy what people think about me. And then I realized, man, I'm so fake. Wow. Oh, damn. When did this happen? When did I start having to act all the time? Oh, God. And I just like sitting there, just realizing it's one thing to like know that you're doing it. And it's another thing to believe, hence what we were talking about at the beginning, believe that you're so authentic, that you're just being real, and then realizing that you're full of shit. That's not what happened. And I remember sitting there going, oh man, fuck that. I used to curse a lot back then. And I was like, no, fuck that. No. Now on, I'm gonna not give a shit about anybody, what they say. No, fuck that. I'm not gonna give a shit. So I just like kept repeating it, like this is how I'm gonna do it now, moving forward. So then that night we all took mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, up in distal, all right? The kind that gets you to fly. Now, and we're all chilling and having a good time. And I remember I was sharing with people how I grew up and what you asked me. And now going all the way, we circle back to what we first talked about. And usually I tell people the fear-based story. You know, I was picked on and how struggling I was and how bad life was growing up. And I needed to prove myself. And that is how that was like the drive that I had. I needed to go and make so much money that I didn't ever worry about money again. And I needed to prove to all the people that didn't believe in me that I was better.
Yeah.
That was my normal story.
Yeah.
But that night, I just shared openly, and it was a combination of the mushrooms, combination of the talks, and combination of doing yoga and meditation already for 2.5 years. And so I shared the other version that we talked about earlier, right? Everything was great. I was inspired with, Arnold movies, my neighbor across the street, super jacked, and we worked out together. It's like 3 brothers. And, so that was the story that inspired me to exercise and eventually, and turn it into the six-pack company that I had. And so as I started to talk about what happened afterwards, I realized that the motivation I had for the next thing, which was to prove myself, it didn't fit the story that I told of everything was fine. And suddenly I was like, oh, whoa, I started to do this thing because I needed to prove myself. I needed to show them I was better. And then I had this realization that, wait, I just said a story of how I grew up without having to see my childhood as this fear-based needing to prove. And now I just looked at the next event in my life, and it was fueled by needing to prove. Huh, that's strange. Okay. Anyways, next event, and then I said the next event, same thing happened. I was needing to prove myself, and that's what drove this next milestone in my life. And I was like, whoa. It drove that one too. And then I said the next one, and it was the same thing. And suddenly I'm sitting there going, oh my God, my entire life, all the motivation for what I'm doing, the life motivation inside was based on needing to prove. Needing to prove, feelings of unworthiness, and I'm going to show them. And I was like, whoa. But I just authentically shared my experience of childhood without any pain, without none of that stuff didn't even exist. And I thought to myself, this question, I asked myself, what would have happened if I looked at my childhood as the version without pain, as the version of everything was fine? Then what would have happened in my first milestone? Probably would have been different. What about the second? Yeah, it would have been different. And the third. And I started realizing that every single milestone in my life was all driven by this needing to prove, this feeling of not being enough. But if I never thought of myself as that, everything in my life would have been different. So I was sitting there realizing that I actually only lived the life that I lived because of this belief in my head. Because of this story in my head that this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and this is what I need to do. So then I asked myself, if I think this story is me, and suddenly I just changed the story, does that mean I just changed? I looked down. Nope. I'm still here. I didn't change. Well, then if I didn't change, then what the hell is this voice in my head? That's not me.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not me, then what am I? And I remember like just silence,
Like what the fuck?
And then I heard this little small voice. You are the soul. I'm like, oh, that's what they mean now. You hear people go, yeah, your soul. Yeah, my soul. Yeah. Now let me just listen to this voice. That's me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I'm the soul. Oh, okay. So if I'm the soul, that means I'm not this voice in my head. Oh, that means that voice, I don't need to listen to any of that stuff. All this garbage. Okay, what's been driving my entire life? Oh, this voice in my head. Where did this voice come from? Oh, it came from this perspective that I had when I was a child. And then I kept replaying all the stories constantly to drive everything in my life. So that means if I change the voice, then everything would change. But I don't even need to actually listen to the voice anymore. As in, not listen, but the voice isn't in charge of me because I'm not the voice.
Right. Yeah.
So many people think that they are, oh, it's me talking in my head. That's me. See, I'm saying this. No. It's just like saying, oh, see, I'm doing this. Yes, your body is doing that, but you are not the movement. You are not the voice. You're the awareness, the soul behind it.
Yeah, because it's funny because there's a book up there. It's called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And he has a book called The Untethered Soul, which is where I first learned this concept of who are you? And it's like, if you can hear the voice, who's listening to the voice? Like, who is that person?
The annoying roommate.
The voice, you know?
You remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
I think chapter 2.
Yeah. So it's again, for someone who hasn't gone down the spiritual path, like maybe we're sounding like two idiots to you, like, because for the first time I discovered it, I was
Stop
like,
listening to your voice. They're going, man, what the heck are they talking about? Yeah, you hear that voice? That's not you.
So that voice, you stop listening to the voice, and this is when you had that epiphany moment that changed your life. Is this correct? Is that correct? This is the lead up to it.
It was the lead up to it. And then as I started to realize this, I kept going. I was like, okay, what other part of my life is driven by the voice, or what are the beliefs that I created? And then I'm going to check to see what's the truth behind these beliefs, what's actually is real. And then I started to understand all of my values, all of my drive, all of my desires, why I did all the things that I did in my life. This took over 6 hours. And at the end, as this is happening, I started to feel my mind start to expand. You know, I was talking about how I couldn't understand things. My mind was just like so busy. It started to expand. I started to drop things. And my body started to feel a little better. I was feeling the pain in my back, and that pain was starting to decrease. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I started to feel better, and my body started to become a little lighter. And I was like, whoa, something's changing. I don't know what it is, but I know it has something to do with what I'm doing. So let me just keep going. And I did that for 6 hours. And at the end of the 6 hours, my body was so light, I was practically coming off the ground. Like I started to realize like I'm almost like levitating. Like, what the heck is wrong with my body? You know, it's like you train like crazy. You know how your arms feel.
Yeah.
Now imagine your arm started to float up without you trying to make it come up. You're looking at your arm like, what the heck is wrong with my arm? You know how your arm feels.
Yeah.
Right? I've been bodybuilding for like 2 decades. I know how my arm feels. I was like, this is not my arm. My arm doesn't feel this way. My body does not feel this way. Something is happening to my body. What the heck is happening? I feel like I'm light, like I'm floating.
Yeah.
You know, my mind was so expanded. It was like a supercomputer. I suddenly was able to understand everything in my life and everything that was connected in my life, and all the stuff that happened. I was able to understand all of it. And the feeling that I had was so amazing. It was so good that the way that I felt before was like being in a dark hole, chained up with no sunlight. But yet, just a few days ago, you know, I'm on YouTube with millions of views and making advertisements and, you know, and running a company. But compared to the way that I felt, how good it was, that old feeling was being in that dark hole. And I remember just going, oh my God, this is amazing. Is this happening to anybody else? And I was walking around looking, asking people, no, it was only happening to me. And so I was trying to figure it out already of what happened. And at the time, I only knew that it has something to do with what I'm doing. And it's something to do with the mushrooms too, because this never happened. But what else actually happened? You know, I was breathing a lot throughout the entire 6 hours. Because I've just had this natural thing to breathe. Back then, Wim Hof wasn't big yet, you know, and people didn't know about pranayama, yogic breathing, unless they studied hardcore yoga. You know, yoga wasn't as popular 7 years ago. But I just felt like I needed to breathe. I didn't know why. I had no idea why I was breathing like that. And I had this sensation on my head that I kept tapping on the top of my head. I was actually doing this, knocking on my head for 6 hours. Why? Don't ask me why at the time. Now I can tell you why. My energy was blocked and I was expanding and opening it up.
How did you know how to tap your head? You were just doing that because you just felt it feel
the same thing, like if you hurt your arm, you touch your arm. You go, ow, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. How? Instinct.
Okay.
Right? If your stomach hurts, right? Yeah. Same thing. There was instinctual. Yeah. It was like there was a weird sensation, pressure here. And at first I was touching and I tapped it and it felt better. And then it started doing it harder and harder and harder. And then I'm walking around, talking, breathing, and knocking on my head, looking like a complete nutcase. But I was practicing on not caring what other people thought about me. So I said, fuck that. I don't give a shit if somebody thinks I'm crazy. I'm sitting here. And, you know, I realized this and this and this. And I was stretching the entire time too. Just like I was either doing that, breathing, talking, stretching, walking around constantly, but I didn't stop. I just kept going for entire 6 hours in this room. Over half the time, nobody was around. They'd all left because I was talking to people, but they got bored of what the heck I was talking about after like 45 minutes. They walked off and I just kept talking out loud to myself because I was realizing like my life. And it was so fascinating because remember earlier already, I realized that I'm this fake person because I am not authentic because I care so much about what other people think. So already I'm like, oh man. And then now I'm realizing more and I'm like, oh man, I don't care that nobody's around, that I'm talking out loud. I'm figuring some big things out. I'm realizing I'm not the story in my head. That's like the Truman Show. You know, right? What? This is a set? You know what? My life is on TV. Like, you know, it's like, it was that big to me. And so I just kept going. And then at the end of the 6 hours, everything shifted. Like I was saying earlier, you know, my pain was completely gone. The injury, I had it for 9 months. Damn. 9 months. I couldn't get rid of it. I blew out my back doing all kinds of weightlifting stuff over years, you know, tons and tons. I can heal all of them. And I did. You know, it takes about a month. It's gone. This one, 9 months, I couldn't get rid of it. And I didn't know why. And I tried everything, all kinds of stuff. Couldn't get rid of it. My mind expanded like crazy. And my mind stopped. Before, my mind was so busy, it was like a broken record, nonstop playing. I can just hear it all the time. It stopped. It was completely silent. I was so present. I didn't even know what presence was. You know, presence? What's presence? I had no idea. It stopped. And I felt amazing. And I was just in this state of bliss and peace. And just like, I was so present. I felt so good. And I knew that this is what I've been wanting. This is what I wanted in life. And I never knew because nobody else told me this. Nobody talks about this. Nobody I knew ever even experienced this. And they didn't tell me. And so it's like this thing that just was non-existent in my reality. And suddenly I'm experiencing it. And I have no idea what the heck I'm experiencing at the time, except for the fact that it's the best thing. And I want this. And I don't give a shit what I need to go and let go of. I'll let go of every single thing I have. Just if I can sleep on somebody's couch and I can hold on to that state, I'm happy. I'm the luckiest person in my life. I was convicted. Like, I don't care. Take everything. Take my business, my girlfriend, my house, take money. I don't need anything. If I have this, I'm the luckiest person. I knew this from like deep inside. This truth was so strong. It was just like screaming that. And I was saying this out loud to people because I didn't give a shit because that's what I believed. And I didn't care if they knew what I was talking about or not. This is my truth and I'm going to speak it. And that's what I did. And that is what I did. One by one, I started letting go of things because when I put my attention towards something, automatically the things I don't put attention to, they start to fall away. I stopped going out. I didn't care to go and drink and do all this. I didn't drink anymore. I smoked like a chimney for a while, but I stopped smoking. I stopped doing all this stuff. And I just started staying at home and started figuring out what happened. And I started to dive into all kinds of rabbit holes into things. And suddenly all my circles that was previously entrepreneur people and, marketing people and all this stuff, people with $1 million businesses and beyond, to hippies. And wizards and goddesses and gods and divinity people and cacao ceremonies constantly. I'm in this, and it's like I literally stepped into like Harry Potter land, to where people are with wands and crystals. I'm like, what? I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I don't care. These people know something I don't, and they've been there the whole time.
Yeah,
like, I didn't have to leave. I didn't go anywhere.
Like, you guys exist.
They were all there. And I just never noticed it my entire life. And suddenly I go to one party, it leads me to another one, and suddenly all these people are around. And I started realizing these are the people I never paid attention to. Not like in a bad way.
Yes.
But you're you weren't
in that world.
Yeah. You're not interested in certain things. You don't go around having conversations with people that are interested. It's just like that. And then it was just a complete immersion of a whole reality, all the things I didn't know. And at this point, still, I didn't understand what happened, and I just started learning and more and more and more. And I started putting pieces together. And this took a long time. I did all kinds of practices. Every day it was just meditations and breathwork and stretchings and yogas and all kinds of stuff. Affirmations, like all the plant medicines, everything. And I started to understand more and more and more. I would watch like videos after videos. I would read all the different spiritual books, and to go and I would match different books. I would go dive into religion, dive into Qigong, dive into yoga. I studied Dr. Joe, loved his stuff, then I studied Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. And I studied Michael Singer and surrendering everything. Then I go study Paramahansa Yogananda. I started understanding the yogic way of looking at things. And then I studied Christianity and started understanding Jesus Christ's way of looking at things and how that fits into everything else. I started studying Buddhist teachings and Buddhist ways of looking at it. And I started to look at these things. And I was looking for this fundamental thing that everybody is pointing to, because I knew that inside that there were truths in all of them, that yoga is true, that Christianity is true, that Buddhism, like all of these enlightened masters, these people, they all understand a certain truth and you're just saying it in a different way. And I wanted to know all the different ways so I can have this understanding, because if I can understand it, then I can recreate it. And so some are like, meditate and keep meditating until your ego just melts away, and the other one's like, you need to do all these different practices to open up your energetic thing. And the other one's like, you need to go and release the emotions. And then you study, all these different diets. And they're like, what it is you just need to clear out the chemicals in your body and then turn your body from acidity to alkaline. And then suddenly it's going to, so I'm like, man. And so I just tried all this stuff. And as another person goes, you just need a microdose. Okay, let me blend it up, put some honey in it, mix it around, stick it in the fridge, and dip it every day. And I did that for a little while. And some days you take too much, and 30 minutes later, you're like, dude, I can't make it, man. What happened? Well, you don't measure? No, I don't measure. Who measures? So, yeah, then that ends. So finally, I started to have some things I can ground, and that just evolved and evolved and evolved over time. And I haven't been on social for, I think my last post was November. We're in mid-January, right? So I'm in a new era and going in and diving into some other elements. I'm always looking for other things, more, deeper and deeper, because I look for it. I look at this is the way to do it. And then I find new understandings to make it faster, more effective. And I spent the last few months hacking into another way that I actually did this way like 7 years ago. But I forgot because I learned so much stuff, and I can't tell somebody, all right, go ahead and do all of these things. No, that doesn't work. You do the most effective things. And then I learned a few methods that I remembered, and I remember I did some of these methods, One of them was imprinting in our mind. After we discover who we actually are right now, then we figure out what do we want to be, like how do we want to be. And even though if you and I go, you want to be confident, I want to be confident, but your confident is different than my confident. We act like a different person, right? You want to be nice, I want to be nice too, but your nice is different than my nice. So, but to be able to remember these things and to be able to still live in the world with all this constant stuff that's coming into our mind, we needed to practice imprinting the information into our mind. And so I did this for 8 months plus another, so about a year and a half of constantly imprinting certain information on a daily basis. I would read what I called it my memorandum to God. I wrote out a paragraph that turned into 2.5 pages over a course of about 5-6 weeks. And I read it 3 to 5 times a day. And by a month and a half in, I memorized the whole thing. So I would just verbatimly just go through the whole thing and just say it out loud when I take a shower. And I say it out loud when I'm walking my dog. And I'll say it 3 to 5 times until the words literally imprinted into my mind. The words, the perspectives, the way of thinking, and it influenced the way I saw things. That was something that I did that I kind of forgot about, because then I started learning about other things. And that was a component along with some other methods. Another method is called role play. And a role play is basically to where you have a problem with somebody, right? Let's say somebody has a problem with their mom or dad, right? Because of some trauma back in the day. You got a problem with this dude because of something that went down. So then now what you want to do is there's energy between you guys, right? When you just think about the person, you're like, oh man, I don't feel good. You've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
There's energy between you guys. And so the memory that's in your mind that happened, it's in the mind, the background, constantly playing, because that emotion is anchored in the body. So the memory is attached to that emotion. So it's constantly affecting us. That emotion comes up. If that emotion is anger because that person did this thing, now this anger, we never let it go, because when we got angry, we didn't go ahead and forgive ourselves, forget them, and let it go and come to peace with it. So we just blocked it away and just kept on going. So this anger is inside. And now we get angry for random stuff, and we don't know why. Well, because you're angry about that thing that you never addressed. You never let it go. So then now a person can go and try to talk to this person, try to iron things out, but that could turn out bad, because a person go, yeah, you're still an asshole, and I don't forgive you, and don't ever call me again. All right. Or this person doesn't know how to do it and it doesn't work out. It gets worse. Or maybe this person's dead. Right. As we get older, we have things with our parents. They're gone. What do? You can't talk to them anymore. So the goal here is not for this person to tell this person, hey, I forgive you. Everything is cool. It's not about that person. It's about us. We are carrying an energy, this energy of anger, this energy of resentment, this energy of guilt that we don't need to carry. We don't need to carry, because it's affecting every day of our life right now. Yeah. We need to let it go. So there's a technique called role play that allows you to go ahead and access that memory and to access the emotion by having the other person role play and be the person that you have a thing with. But there's a way to do it so this person doesn't have to go and try to understand how to act like this person. It's much easier than that, They role play as the person, so you have somebody to talk to. But it allows somebody to go ahead and bring the emotion up, feel it, angry, sad, whatever it is, and then by feeling it, they get to release it. And so now when they get to release this emotion, now they don't have problems with this person anymore without even having to talk to the person. So there are different types of role play exercises and practices that allow somebody to release so much stuff inside of them. It's a really powerful tool, and it can help somebody let go faster.
Do you have to do that role play with the other person that you have the issue with?
No, you can do it with anybody.
Okay.
If I was to, let's say, for example, if you got problems with a guy named Joe, and I'm now, okay, I'm going to play Joe. I'm Joe now. So you just told me this is what happened with Joe. He did this, you did this, and now you got some beef with this person, right? And you haven't talked to this person for 3 years. And even just thinking about the person, you get upset. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and bring that thing up and release it. So then now I'm going to role play Joe, and now you're going to go ahead and talk to Joe. I'm Joe. We close our eyes, then and so this way you can go talk to Joe and you can tell Joe what you really feel. You can go ahead and tell Joe what happened, your side of the story, as in one example. Tell him your side of the story, tell him what happened, tell him about how it made you feel, tell him about all the shit that happened afterwards that Joe has no idea about because you didn't talk to him afterwards, but it still happened. Tell him all these things. And so when you start to do that, you access that emotion will start to come up because it's attached to Joe, to you and Joe, to that event, to what happened. So you start to bring it up.
Yeah.
Right. So this is just one technique. There's so many ways to be able to bring this up and to release it. And I've done a lot of this in the past that it just came to me the last few months. This will be a very powerful tool. And I've released so much. I'm a very different person than how I used to be.
Yeah, you used to be angry, right?
Very.
Very angry.
Behind the scenes. On camera, I'm a nice guy. Yeah.
Like
behind the scenes,
aggressive.
Yeah.
In person, on the camera, passive aggressive, but behind the scenes, like
behind the scenes, like if I'm like I would drink and just become very angry. I was nicknamed the Hulk.
Really?
Yeah. Because the guy's chilling, he becomes the Hulk and he just tears everything up. I was like that.
Damn.
Yeah, and I used to destroy a lot of stuff.
You must have been a tough guy to work with then.
It was. I have to agree. There were times where it was really tough. Some of my meetings were really intense because I slam on things. I slam on tables. I punch everything. So
yeah. So actually, I was going to ask. That brings up a question I was going to ask you about when you had this epiphany. You had this experience, 6 hours, and you realized that the $500 million goal that you were striving for was all for a feeling that you had felt. Right? You already felt that feeling. So then, all of a sudden, now it doesn't seem that attractive. It seems like it doesn't seem attractive at all to you at that point. And so, how did you deal with your business partners at the time? Like, how did that go down? Because I can imagine what you're telling me, how you were explaining it. I was getting excited, and I'm like, I wasn't even in the company, but as you're telling the story, I'm getting excited of, wow, you were going to build it to 500 million. Like, you were hitting all your goals. Like, everything's going so great.
We're about to move into this 32,000 square feet new office,
and all of a sudden, boom, guys, I can't do this shit. Like, how did that go down?
Well, I was doing my best to be truthful with them. I wanted the best for them, but I needed to follow what was real for me. And when they didn't see that, that it was right to take the company that direction, I told them, I was like, well, I gotta follow this, and they didn't understand it. But I don't blame them because you can't understand this. It's like trying to tell somebody, how it's like to be in love. You can explain it, but they can't feel what you're feeling. Yeah. It's like telling somebody about presents and they try to think about it. No, you can't do it. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You got to experience it. So I didn't expect people to understand, but it didn't matter the fact that they didn't understand. And so, there were rumors spread about me for a while. Mike is crazy now. And I heard about it, here and there, but it was okay. I didn't mind. I didn't blame them because I understood. You see, when our consciousness expands and we stop judging everything and we start to see the truth in all things, we reach a level of understanding. We start to not look at things as good, bad, right, or wrong. Things are just what it is. And we just look at things as cause and effect. If I say this, then this is what's going to happen. Why? Because this is the way they think. And so therefore it would happen that way. It's like, they're not wrong for it. It's just what happened. Why do they think that way? Because they experienced that. Why they experienced that? Because that's all it is. The right or wrong isn't actually relative. Everything is just a cause and effect.
Yeah.
But it takes a person to get to a certain level of consciousness, or in other words, they need to release all the stuff inside that's not them, all the emotional stuff, all the memory stuff that's influencing them. When they release it all, not only do they feel amazing, because they literally let go of the load, like a person that's super busy and now they had a chance just to chill out and detach. This is why people go on vacations, or people get drunk so they can detach, or smoke and get high, whatever. But now they stop judging things this is the way it is and it can't be any other way. They stop looking at things like that. And what it does is it releases control of things. You don't try to control everything anymore because you're not afraid. You're not afraid of what would happen if you don't control it. You're not attached to the outcome. You don't care if it happens this way or that way. You'll be fine either way. You're not afraid anymore. People control because they're so afraid. And so they're so afraid of so many things, and they don't realize how driven their life is through fear. But an easy question a person can ask is when someone goes, oh, I think I'm going to do it this way or that way. They can just ask themselves this one question. Is it fear that's driving me, or is it love? Is this fear driven or is this love driven? They can ask this question in anything that they do and just do their best to answer truthfully. It's either one or the other. Oh, I don't want to go with that thing. Why? Oh, because, I've got bad hair day and it's just not going to be good. Is it fear driven or love driven? Well, I'm afraid that people are going to look at my hair and judge. Damn it, it's fear. Okay, that's what it is. Just understand it and let that be. Don't go further and further and further. Let's just see it like that. And that person will just do that. And then suddenly they start to ask themselves that question and all the different things that they do, the way that they make all their choices. And they suddenly start to realize that so many of their choices is based on fear. So if your whole life or so much of your choices is based on fear, you're only going to create more fearful outcomes. And then you look at your friends and they all decide the same way. So everybody is fearful and everybody feels as normal because everybody decides that way.
And then that becomes your world. So you don't think there's anything else outside of that because everyone is making decisions based on fear.
Yeah.
And that was your world.
Yeah.
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 And so you're looking at everyone and you're like, because I've been in this world too, the internet marketing space, and you look at everyone and you're like, wow, like I had a panic attack because of this very thing. I was like, man, they're making like so much more money than me. Like, damn it. Like, or, future thinking, just literally stuck in the future. And it brought on a panic attack for me. And I realized that everyone in this space is just thinking from fear. Like it's being driven by not enough. Like once I make X amount of dollars, then I'll be on stage, then I'll be in front of all these people, then I'll get the plaque, and then now I'm enough, right? Like that's like the rhetoric that.
But they may not even realize that is the driven thing. What they'll say is that they need to do that because the financial crisis that's coming, because what's happening with with the world, and they need to be safe, and it's logical, and all this stuff. And so they have that belief, and therefore this is what they are comfortable in with that number in mind, reaching that level. But if we go, well, when you had less, did you live? Right? Have you ever had less? Yes. Were you alive? Were you okay? Well, yeah, I was okay, but I wasn't happy. Oh, but you're really happy now because you got more. Well, I'm doing better, but are you happy? Well, I can be happier. So you're not really happy, but you got more right now. But you will be happier when you have more, but you're not happier now with more from before. And it's like, so again, going back into having people really see what they think and what they actually are experiencing. If somebody goes, I just need a little more and I'll be happy. And they look in their life and go, how often have I said that? 10 times over the course of, I'm 35 years old and I've said that 10 times. Okay, what happened every time? And then they start to see what actually happened. They may realize that what they're saying is not what actually happens. So then now they don't believe what they say anymore. They need to go and find out why that is. So now they can be, they can just understand who they really are and see their actual life of what's happening, versus just living this fantasy world in their head.
It's interesting as you speak about that. I'm thinking about one of the happiest moments in my life, because obviously for you it was this awakening, this moment that you experienced, and you didn't want to let that go, right? So for me, it was when my brother surprised me on my 30th birthday. He flew all the way from England to Bali and surprised me in front of all my best friends in Bali, and that was like the happiest I've ever been because of what that moment meant to me, you know. And it's such an interesting thought to think that it wasn't money. And I grew up, my parents didn't have much money, and you know, I was driven by that. I need to make more money, you know, like, and I did that. But if you ask me if I was thinking about it now, like, what's my happiest moment? I wouldn't reel off a monetary figure that I've made in my life, you know. And it's, to your point, it's about the feeling that you are after, rather than what you think that's representing for you. It's just a feeling. How you feel is everything.
And somebody listening to this may think, so that means I'm going to just start listening to my feelings. And so I feel like doing this right now, so I'm going to do it. And then I feel like not doing that, so I'm not going to do that. So then yes, it is about the feeling. But this took me many years to start understanding deeper and deeper and deeper, you know. And then when we start to understand, this is why people get confused, because it's not yes or it's not no. There's a middle, but somebody has to understand what this middle is. So when it comes to this subject, if somebody goes, I just listen to my feelings and let my feelings guide me. Well, actually, you want to use your feelings as a deciding factor. Like, this is like a tool. It's like one of the tools. It's like you have a compass, but you don't just go through life going, I'm going to keep going north no matter what. Like, this just lets you know what's north.
Right.
But then you have another tool that helps you understand, should I take this path for north, or should I take that path for north? Or maybe I shouldn't even go north. I used to go south. Right. But the compass just lets me know where's north. And I got another tool that helps me understand what I actually should go now that I know where I'm at. Right. So our body lets us know how we actually feel about something, but it doesn't mean we blindly follow it. So let's say we needed an easy example for this is we need to do something, but we're afraid to do it. So how do we feel? Well, we feel afraid. We feel fear. So we can go, I don't feel good. I don't want to do it. So do we feel this? Yes, it's absolutely true. Now, do we need to do it? Well, in this case, let's say the answer is yes. But I thought I need to trust my feelings, and my feeling says this doesn't feel good. Right. What you actually do is you want to know what you are feeling, but you trust that this is what you're feeling, but your feeling doesn't dictate you, because your feelings is not you. Just like your thoughts is not you. We are not this body. We are not this mind. The access control of who we are as a human being is our soul, what we saw, our divine self, our higher self. Our soul, when combined with this mind and this body, creates, we can call the ego. So the idea of killing our ego is not accurate, because to kill our ego is to say that we will disconnect from the mind. We don't have identity anymore, and to disconnect from the body, so we don't feel. And so now we are just consciousness, and now we're just operating as soul. No, we didn't come here to just be a soul. That's why we have a body. That's why we are human. But we need to be connected, and we need to know what our mind is saying. We need to know what our body is saying. And then to combine the Trinity, the three, equates into our ego, our identity of who we are, which, like what you're saying, now that gives us desire. There's a fine line. There's a line between too much desire and no desire. Too much desire, you're consumed by it, and you're always living lack, no matter how much you accomplish. It doesn't matter. No matter how good stuff you do, you can be a philanthropist and donating millions and millions, and you'll still be in lack because you have so much desire to do it. Therefore, desire and lack is the same thing. You cannot have desire without lack. If you have no lack, you have no desire. You have a lot of desire, you have lack. That's how it works. Just like we talked about the water. The lack, I'm thirsty. Water, desire. If I'm not thirsty, I don't want your water, right? So then we need to know how to be in the middle. If we have no desire, then we don't do anything. We just sit around, just meditate all day, and we might as well just all live in caves. And that doesn't help the world or help things. There will be very, very few people on this planet that actually is their lifeline to do that. Most people don't need to do that. But there's a middle part. So how do we need to have desire, but not let it consume us. Right?
That's the key.
That is the key, right? It's like the ability to be able to protect ourselves. Like, right, so you do jiu-jitsu so you can protect yourself, right? But now if you go extreme, you'll just go around kicking everybody's butt. Well, that's not going to be good. But if you can't protect yourself, then now you become a victim all the time. And that's not good either. So this middle ground that you're at is, if I need to, I'll protect myself. If I need to, I'll defend somebody who can't protect themselves, only if it's necessary. But if it's not necessary, I'm going to stay right in this middle, keep practicing my art, and just develop the skill, but not use it only when it's necessary. So you stay in this middle. So we had this conversation like a few days ago, or maybe last week, right? Where your instructor was like, be more aggressive. Okay, fine, But it was just for practice, right? If you become too aggressive, then you walk around going, hey, let's test it out. Let me test on my skills. I just want to try to hurt people because I can't.
Right.
So it's like that with desire. And now when we learn how to be in the middle of it, we can create, and we don't let our creation consume us. And we need to learn how to stay in that middle, and it's different for each person. For a person, maybe the middle is that $1 million business. So that's why we can't say $1 million business is not right for a person. But if a person is doing this $1 million business and it consumes them, how do we know? They're stressed. They're not happy. They're not feeling pulled to do this. They feel like they're forced. They don't have the motivation. They have to do all this stuff to try to get motivation to do it because they don't feel motivated to do it. They feel like not centered when they do it. They don't want to wake up in the morning, but they have to because they invested all their money and all their time and committed to a whole bunch of people. So they feel like they're having to force themselves. Now, this $1 million business is their golden cage.
Yeah. I felt like that myself with my business, and yeah, it was tough, man, because when you're in it, you've committed so much, like you said, with money, with the people, you have people to pay now, and you can't possibly go back. You can't possibly stop, It's
going to affect so many people, right?
Yeah, you got to keep going.
Your reputation, all of that.
Yep. And you got to keep going. And actually, one of my clients that I attracted through that business, he's a consultant for these big companies. He makes like 32 grand a month. And I was like, wow, that's really good money. That's one consulting gig. And he's like, yeah, but it's golden handcuffs because they control me. Like I hate working for these people. It's great money, but that's what keeps people like me, like all these consultants, all of his friends that he talks about. He's like, they're all miserable. None of them like their job. None of them like their life. They have terrible relationships with their family, but they're making great money. And it's like the money can become your prison. And that's such a big thing. I never realized that, but it's true. It can be your prison. Like I used to live in Thailand, and a lot of backpackers would come through, and everyone would say the same thing. They'd always say, yeah, I really love it here. I want to stay here forever, but I just can't. I was like, why can't you? Like, I got a job back home, pays really well. So, I need to go back home and work. I'm like, do you like your job? No, I don't like it, but I gotta do it. It pays really well. So basically they're living their life being a slave to money, basically.
Yeah.
And all from fear, like you said, not from love at all.
Yeah. If they loved it, they would just stay.
Yeah.
And they would just figure it out, figure out how to do it. Maybe they make less money for the first year or two.
Yeah.
But they're happy. And then they may sacrifice 2 years and they find another method to make enough money to have an abundant life.
Yeah.
An abundant life means they have everything that they need, not they have everything that they want, everything that they need.
Yeah.
And so if we have everything what that we need, why do we need to get everything that we want? Like, what's the difference between need and want? It's a big thing. A lot of people get confused between the two. People go, I really, really need it. No, you want that, but you don't need it. Yeah, But to be able to do that and say, actually, you know, when somebody listens to this and they're thinking, this makes a lot of sense, but I don't think I can't do that. I can't even imagine it. Well, because they're listening to their body, or they're trying to, and it doesn't feel good. Even the idea of it feels so scary to just, you know, leave their money train. And I was like, nah, it feels so scary. And in their mind, they already fired 5 reasons on why they should stay. So they're now being dictated by the voice in their head and by the feeling. But if this person, if let's say they experience a moment of clarity and they're able to go, what do I really want in my life? I want to experience this. I want to experience that. I want to have real love. I want to be myself and stop, you know, being so resentment to the people I work with. I don't want to be around those people. I want to be around other type of people. That's what I really want. And they look at their life and realize it doesn't match. They go, I need to make a change. At this point, they can actually come to all of that because their body feels good and it's not constantly affecting the way they see things, and it's not bringing up thoughts of fear. But if they were to try to get to this and they don't have a good feeling in their body, their body is fear driven, then as they're trying to do this, that's what everybody wants to. They want to come to this realization, but they can't a lot of times because their mind keeps firing. Yeah. Well, what about this? Yeah. And then now they spend their time debating with themselves. But what they need to do is create the space of clarity. So when I realized this years ago, and I'm like, okay, if we get people to just experience enough moments of time in this space of clarity, they will come to their own realizations of things. So what do I need to do to get them to do that? And the answer was what they needed to do was really simple. When I did all these practices, I'm like, okay, if you do this practice, combine it with this, all this stuff. I was like, if you do it that way, end up with this, you'll get to that space. And so I'm like, okay. So I started telling people, just do it. And then it became, what do I need to do to go ahead and get them to do it? You know, what carrot do I need to dangle in front of them? What shiny thing do I need to dangle in front of them to get them to do it? Because whatever it takes to get them to do it, once they do it, they will come to realization themselves. I don't need to go and tell them how to do the rest of it. Right. They will come to that clarity and they can start to see. So that became what I started building. I'm like, okay, and I started to spread that, and I call that flow training because I know what the hell to name it, because like it's a combination of all this stuff. But that's the real result that it was creating, just so people can be clear. And when they're clear, they're able to see their actual life, and they can experience their version of what I experienced. Just a clarity in our life of what is actually happening versus what we really want. And then people will then be able to make good decisions that are aligned with what they really want. It has nothing to do with having to learn a whole bunch of stuff. The learning a whole bunch of stuff happens after this, but they have to come to this realization first. Because if they try, then they learn new things and then they debate with what they learn. And you can always debate with everything.
Yes.
So it's not really effective.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, it's like the overthinking can just be analysis paralysis.
You just get stuck in it.
Yeah. And so with your flow training, because so by the way, if you don't know, Mike's new thing that he's working on, that he's crushing it with, which is flow training, what is your definition of flow training? Because I've participated in a few of your workshops here in Bali, and I think it's amazing. So how would you describe it to someone?
So it's a physical movement practice that opens up the energy in the body. And it opens up the energy in the body. And when that happens, the emotions are released, the thoughts stop, or they start to slow down. And then we come into realization with who we are. We connect to our self, our higher self. We connect to our soul. We get a moment, we get some presence, but we needed to release everything from our body. We increase the ability to feel. That's what happens when someone does this practice. That's the main thing that happens. That's why I created it. But there's a whole bunch of other results that happen from it. Like somebody becomes more flexible, stronger, cardio, endurance, their stress resiliency increases, all these other things happen. But the way that I designed it was for that one purpose. And so people will try it, and sometimes people just use it for other things. They use it because they just feel better, but they're not looking to get centered to themselves and access an awakened version of them. And it's okay. It's fine. It's just like that's how it will naturally evolve, just like yoga, right? People do yoga for all kinds of reasons now, but yoga was created when we say yoga, we mean postures, asanas, but that was created to increase the efficiency of meditation. Because when they were doing just meditating itself without the asanas, without the postures, they found that it was harder to get into a deeper state. The body needed to release. So then they started to come up with different postures called asanas, which is now just known as yoga for the general public, but people that understand yoga knows it's more than that, But that was the reason for it. But then now the way that yoga became popular now is you can have the yogic body, yogi do all these different awesome, cool moves, and it becomes more aesthetics and more everything else. It's okay. It's okay. Somebody may go, well, that's not the real spirit, but that's how things evolve. So we don't need to blame it. Nothing is wrong with that. So many people are introduced to it that they would not have been introduced to if someone goes, this is about enlightenment and spiritual awakening. Oh, well, I'm just looking at flexibility, so I'm not going to care about that. But they go, oh, cool, right, flexibility, yeah, okay. And then as they learn into it, they start to understand that there's deeper aspects to it. And that's been something I've been playing around with, seeing what else can I do to help people understand, help people see the other benefits. And there is a lot, I talk about flexibility, I talk about feeling good, but ultimately it's to help somebody awaken themselves. And they come to the realization of all the self-made identity, the manufactured self, which we call ego, but ego is a really loose term. It's not just ego. We need ego to operate in this life or desire. Mm-hmm. It's more of, let's just get out of being fear-based. Let's move towards being more loving. And then we can actually experience a higher quality of life. No mental problems and all that stuff.
Mm. Right. So basically, the flow training is physical practice. It's a physical. Is there any? So the mental part of this is within the physical practice.
There's 7 principles.
Okay.
There's 7 principles that are part of the mental aspect, and it's with the acronym BREATHE. So B is like breathe with awareness, breathe with rhythm. It's becoming conscious of the breath. So when we're doing certain moves, we're having to go ahead and we follow a certain rhythm. Because when we can access the rhythm in our movement that correlated with the body, we have harmony. Just like an engine needs to be in rhythm with the exhaust, needs to be in rhythm with everything else. There's a certain rhythm in the body. The actual rhythm in the body that's the most important is breath, that we can actively control. We can say the heart's important too, but most people can't actively control the heart, but you can actively control the breath. And we can control the heart through the breath. Mm. Right, we can control the nervous system through the breath. Yeah. Right, so breathing with awareness, right, breathing with rhythm. That's like the first one. Repetition creates mastery. BR, right? Now, what's that about? Well, imagine how often people get upset because of their performance of what they're doing. I didn't do it good enough, right? They didn't do it good enough. I should have done it better, or all this stuff. I don't like the outcome of my action. That's like pretty universal for pretty much most things that happens, right? Well, this principle is really simple. It goes, repetition creates mastery. So if you're not satisfied with your action, you haven't done it enough. That's it. Do it more and you get better at it. If you don't do it more, you're going to suck. That's it.
Yeah. With everything.
With everything.
It's like we were talking about this because you came to jiu-jitsu, right? And I was talking to you about how like sometimes I get mad at myself because I do a move and I don't like it. It's taught to me and I do it perfectly in training and drilling, right? And then when it comes to spar, like I don't execute the move that I've practiced. And I was telling you this, and you were like, "You just haven't done it enough." Like, that's it. That's literally it, right?
Yeah. So like, just imagine somebody understands this principle and actually applies this principle to all of their life, including the practice. Right? The practice is just a place that they can actively practice this principle, but they practice it everywhere in their life. So somebody goes, wow, well, it's such a simple principle, but it's so powerful. And when they start to apply it, they start to realize how often they are failing at accomplishing this simple principle. Because the principle is so simple, but it is so effective. See, what happens when people are trying to create a better life is they don't know where to start. They don't know what they need to work on. They don't know what they need to get, what they need to think of, what they need to understand. So how do they move forward if they don't know what it could be? It could be so many different things. Maybe it's my friends. Maybe it's my way of thinking. Maybe it's my body. Maybe I need to start exercising. Maybe. What can we go ahead and fall back on? Universal principles that works for every single person, that no matter who you are and what you're about, it will move you forward in your life. So I knew a lot of principles, and I sat and I asked myself this question. I spent a long time sitting there going, what is the universal principles that would help a person move forward, that will help a person get to the place of having more peace, accessing their real self? And so this acronym, BREATHE, are those principles. That doesn't mean that's the only important principles and there's not other ones. There's plenty. But we don't remember 50, 100 principles when something happens at that moment. And so we need to remember the least amount of principles that can fit the most amount of situations. So we're having this podcast and suddenly we mess up. Oh, dang it, messed up again. Said something wrong. Let's go and delete this. But then if we get upset, we can ask ourselves this question. Repetition creates mastery. How many times have I did it? And it doesn't matter what the answer is. You go, I did this 50 times. Great. So that means you haven't done it enough. Well, no. Well, I think I did enough. Well, you didn't matter. You can think. Talk to somebody. Why don't you have you talked to a person that has done a lot of podcasts or is really, really good at it? Ask them how many they did. Oh, I'm on episode number 500 and blah, blah, blah. Oh, what happened on those before? Let me tell you about all the time I messed up. So then now we go, oh, there's nothing to be upset about. So we need to have principles to help us understand and correct our behavior, get us back on track so we can get aligned again instead of rabbit trailing into being upset about something that we didn't need to. But our conditioned beliefs creates that. So these 7 will help us get back on track, and they're super simple and they're non-biased and effective for everybody. E is effort max 70. This is like a new one that's like so big. Effort max 70. E.
Okay. Effort max 70.
Yeah. Okay. It's like you guys practice it in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Right.
Don't go 100% trying to rip somebody's arm off and stuff, because you're going to either injure yourself or you're going to piss the other person off who's better than you, and they're going to kick your ass. And then you're not going to come back to class because you can't move the next day. It's like, so true. 70%. So we don't need to dive into all of them now, but these are the principles that we practice in the actual practice that pours into everyday life.
Okay. So flow training, for those who don't know what it is, it's essentially helping to relieve stress in the body, relieve tension, and get them more centered within who they are, more aware of what they are, basically helping them wake up, essentially. Is that a good summary, would you say?
Yeah. And to give some context to it, it's 5 different methods of practice. The first one is tapping. Tap massage. We tap the body to release the energy. We tap the body to activate the nervous system. We tap the body to open up the blood vessels. We tap the body to open up the meridians, the nadis.
When you mean tapping, you just mean like literally just tapping yourself.
Yeah, literally tapping, literally doing this everywhere. Because you don't want one place to be open, not the other place to be open. All right? It's like, what part of your body do you want to be healthy? Come on, the whole thing. Right, then tap the whole thing. Somebody can sit on a chair and they can tap. Anybody can tap. Doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter skill set, doesn't matter anything. They can tap. That was one of the criterias. I want to make sure that anybody can do these things. So it doesn't matter their skill sets. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know how to tap good. Just tap. And if it hurts, tap softer. If it doesn't feel good enough, go harder. You can form your hands into all kinds of different things. There's a method. I learned this from a guy. I forgot his name, but in Chinese they call it Pai Da Lajing. Pai Da, tap, Lajing, stretch. And that method, which was so effective that he got put into jail.
Really?
Just like all the other
put into jail for tapping.
Yeah, well, because he said it healed sicknesses and diseases.
He's making outrageous claims.
Yeah, and it's more like testimonials, but outrageous claims. Yeah. So I started learning about that because I learned into everything. I was like, okay, and I started to understand it. I started to do it myself, and my energy changed fast. Before, if I wanted to go ahead and get rid of the tension here, if I want to get rid of the tension here, I had to do a yogic move. I had to get into a certain stretch. But now I can just literally tap it right now and be gone. That fast. Why do I need to get into a position and all this stuff when I can do it faster? So I started applying that method, and I started seeing how that method, that methodology was actually applied in a lot of different things. Massage is that element, but we are doing a different method. Instead of tapping, we press into the body, right? And then you dive into all the different massages. Then you get acupressure. Then you have acupuncture, which is basically using a needle to go right into the point versus acupressure going from the surface. And then you can combine that with like affirmations, combine that with like, expression. And then you have EFT, emotional freedom technique. So you start to look at all of these different things that people are using, and you go, what is the universal thing that is effective?
Yep.
It's not the name, it's not the brand, it's not the stuff. It's what are they actually doing? You start to realize people are using a simple thing, which is using their body to physically impact the body. Hence, those machines, you go ahead and massage your body, right? It goes bop, 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 bop. You sit into a massage chair and it massages you. So we're basically, if we look at that and we go, how do we go ahead and use the principle of that to open up the body? See, there's so many powerful techniques out there, and we want to make sure that everybody can do it. We want to make sure it's simple to easy, that the learning curve is none, because there's too big of a learning curve. Then we start to segment certain people. They can't do it, but this anybody can do. Anybody can tap. So that was part one. And then, so there's all this different stuff. We start to tap everything, right? All the senses and all this stuff. And then we move into part two, strength training, so I was very familiar with that. And so that I used that to build muscle before, but now we use that to help open up the body, because it's the same thing. It happens at the same way. We can get the blood to pump. We get the cardiovascular to increase, So there's lots that go into that, but that was the part I was most familiar with. And then we go into stretching. And so as we start to go through all the parts, stretching, we start to hit everything. It's not just stretch everything. There's a lot of things to stretch, but there is one area that you want to stretch more important than everything else. Not because all the other parts are tight, but they're not as important, but because we're trying to accomplish one thing: elevate your consciousness, open up your energy.
That's what you're trying to stretch.
Right. The spine.
I see.
Because that's the energy highway. Right. If you're trying to go ahead and move traffic from one end of the country to the other end of the country, you're going to go and clear out all the little streets, or you're going to clear out the biggest street and tell everybody to go on the big street. All right. That's the fastest way. You're not going to try to do all these little neighborhood routes. Biggest way, have them access the big way. And we look at all the energy centers. Everything has energy in our body, but let's access the main highway. And so all the stretches are designed to go ahead and hit the main highway from the spine, top all the way to the bottom. And so that's the stretching. So then I picked out the exercises that can hit that. And then we move into the next thing, which is breathing. Because now breathing, the breath can travel to places that the stretching couldn't hit, the exercises couldn't hit, and the tapping couldn't hit. But the breath will travel everywhere. But breath alone, without the others, is missing certain elements. So then we do breath at the end to kind of clean everything up, just as the end. Right. So we start off with the easiest simple thing, the tapping, and then we go and work the whole entire body, and then we stretch everything out. And I tried all these different combinations and all these different ways. First, put this here, over a long time. This format creates the most amount of opening of energy that I found so far. It's always evolving and changing. It's evolved over the last 2 years as I started to run a group online, and it's evolved some. But after breath, now your body's relaxed, all the excess energy is released. Without the excess energy in your body, and the body's energy is more still, the mind is really still. Now you're ready for meditation. If you didn't get to this state and you meditate, unless your mind is already still, you can't meditate. You just sit there and constantly think. And then time's up. So you basically just sat and closed your eyes and thought. But what you want to do is sit, close your eyes, and be still in your mind. So this way you can access your soul. You can access your higher self. You can access that knowingness, the intuition part of you. But you can't get to that point if your mind is not still. And you can't get your mind still if you have your energy is not still. If you got too much chaotic energy. If you're feeling anxious, you got to get rid of it first. So this way you can get into the preparation for meditation. It's like if you don't warm up for jiu-jitsu, you're going to hurt yourself, right? And if you don't warm up for meditation, it's not going to be effective.
Why doesn't anyone talk about that, the warm up for meditation?
So the people that are meditating, they do talk about that. They just warm up differently. When we do yoga, see, the people that don't look at yoga for the idea of waking somebody up, they do it for stretching. Well, then doesn't matter then, right? But let's say somebody is going, I'm going to use yoga to go ahead and help wake up people, which there are many people that do. Then they wouldn't tell somebody just to go ahead and just meditate right away. They may go, okay, calm down, relax a little bit. And then now we're going to do different practices, like let's say Kundalini yoga, which you meditate kind of throughout, a little bit throughout. So this way you try to make the whole entire session into a meditation. That's one way of doing it. So it does exist already. But when we look at what people are wanting, we talked about dangling the carrot, the shiny thing, what can get somebody to go and do it? Why don't they just kind of breathe and just meditate and just keep meditating? Within 20, 30 minutes, you'll eventually slow down and then sit for another hour. Well, people want more than just a slow mind, a still mind. They want to be more flexible. They want to have strength. They want to increase their cardio, right? They want to let go of tension. They want other things along with feeling centered. And so that's why we do all of those other things, because those other things accomplish the desires that people are wanting. And it also allows them to be able to experience without even having that to be the real goal. They will still experience a stiller state of being. They'll experience more of their self, of their true self. And it'll happen by default. Just as long as they don't skip the meditation at the very end. So sometimes people cut it short and it's fine. When somebody's ready for it, they'll do more of it.
So if someone's angry, like you had the anger, lots of issues with anger, if they're depressed or if they're anxious, or if they're overthinking about things, would you recommend they do flow training?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They need to let go of that emotion inside. And they can't let go of it in their mind simply by thinking about it. When they do, they just generate more emotion in their body, and they're just stuck in this loop. But when they
go.
But the thing is, they don't have to do a full practice all the time. People got lives, and not everybody is working out, an hour every day or longer. But if somebody was to do 7 minutes, that 7 minutes will affect them. That 7 minutes would move them in the right direction. It would clear 7 minutes worth of energy, of anger, and that helps. A lot of times people think it's all or nothing, and that idea, it doesn't work. For people like us that have been training, that we eat healthy and all this stuff, we know that every little thing contributes. And if we do a lot of the good thing, we get a lot of good benefits. If we do a little bit, we get a little bit. And sometimes we only do a little bit, and it's okay, because it's better than doing nothing.
So the emotions is interesting, because you said earlier that most people don't feel. And so a way to feel is to do flow training. Right? So if I do flow training, I will improve my body's ability to feel. Is that correct?
increase the ability to feel more. Some people will say, well, I am feeling, but they aren't able to feel deeper. They don't have a lot of awareness in their body. And flow training opens that up because we're using all these different methods to help them connect back to their body. So just like what we were talking about earlier, they're able to use their body to decide, to know what is right and what is wrong, what's a yes and what's no. And also, we didn't even talk about the health aspect, but all diseases can be healed if your body's circulation is open. There's a certain point to where the damage is so bad that if you open it, it's beyond the point of return. But a body can heal itself if it gets sick. But the only time it doesn't heal itself is if there's blockages of blood, blockages of energy, blockages of nutrients and the right chemicals going into the area. So that body needs to be default open. And if it is open, then we get to heal ourselves. No matter what, injury or sickness or anything that happens. There's 3 basic things for that, which is sleep, eating good, and movement. But then the other thing that people are starting to realize more is emotions. Our emotions will create blockages just like, but that's on the energetic side, which is equally as important as the physical side. And so there's so many things to remember all this. So what do we do? So we just create really simple ways and make it easy for people to do it. But one by one, flow training is focused on the physical aspect. And when somebody is able to start to release these things, people that aren't eating right, people that aren't getting enough sleep, a lot of times the reason for all this stuff is in their head because they can choose to sleep early or eat better. But they're emotionally angry, they got problems, all this stuff that start to go away because they're able to release it at the root instead of trying to think that they have a real problem and constantly be diving in thinking about this problem. But the real problem isn't the problem that they're thinking about. It's something else that's much deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. And if you guys are interested in flow training, check out links in the description for that, for your program. But I wanted to touch on, I had a question that came up as you were talking, and I was wondering, if you never had this epiphany, what would have happened to you? What would you do? Do you think about that? What would have happened?
I've thought about this before. I don't think about it very often.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I think that it would have happened maybe in another way. It would happen maybe in another way that would have created a slightly different outcome. It's like this. You get a lion from the wild. You get a lion, you get a wild, and then you put him in a cage, and then you train him to do certain things that he doesn't naturally do. And so, because you're trying to change this, you're trying to take the wild out of this lion, and now this lion is performing, it's in this circus and doing this stuff. So then, even though we can try to control the actions, but we can't take the lion out, we can only try to manipulate it. But when we stop doing all this stuff, eventually the lion will still go back into his natural path. It may take some time. We are designed to be able to do things in a certain way. We are designed that way. The tendency of us having to want to go this direction was already genetically, energetically in our design already. That's why we are all unique, and we have certain things that give us a tendency to want to go that direction already. It's not, and if a certain opportunity changes, we missed out on something, we should have said yes, but we said no. The universe is constantly moving things around. And it's like a natural constant reaction. Everything is reaction, creating another reaction within itself. And so the things that would eventually happen anyways. Maybe it doesn't happen exactly the same way. Maybe this lion in this case would behave a little bit differently because it went into the circus for 5 years and then now it's came out and it's not like the other lions because it's got a lot of this human contact and training and stuff. But there's still an aspect, but you can't say that this lion will now act like a snake and live like a snake. It will naturally still go into its normal path, even though there was a detour. And I feel like with life, it's like that. Sometimes we get all these different opportunities that we can say yes or no to. We may not say yes to all of them because we may not know and we're not paying attention. But because we are all here for certain purposes and we are designed for those purposes, the fact that you're in great shape and that you train all the time, you may think, well, this is because I train all the time. Yes, but what got you to train all the time? Well, these reasons. Okay, what got you to think about those reasons? Anybody can come up with the same reasons. Anybody can go ahead and technically do exactly what you do. But there are certain aspects inside of you that made going down that path of what you did to feel right, to be comfortable. And so you do. And the way you are is the outcome of that. And we all are like that. The more that we connect back to ourselves, connect back to our body and start to silence our mind so we can come into presence and we can access our soul, we can access our true self, the more we will be able to know what is right and what is wrong. The more we'll know when to say yes and when to say no. And even when we miss out on certain things, it doesn't matter because there are massive amount of opportunities that are constantly happening. Everything is constantly a ripple effect from everything else. And so it's not like this one chance and it would have been gone. It can happen in another way. And we don't need to sit and really try to figure it out because it'll be impossible for our little minds to try to see the ripple effect of it. It's like trying to get our mind to understand all the actions that's happening at this moment in our body. It would be worthless to do that. It's too many. We couldn't try to figure it out. But we can just do certain things, we can trust that it will just happen if we do certain things and let that be and let the other stuff work itself out.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Is the trust that it will work out. And so when I look at your story and how you became successful, it was you trusted yourself, like you knew it was going to work, like you believed in yourself. And I think for a lot of people, they don't believe in themselves. Like for me, for example, like I started out believing in myself, and then along the way, I kind of lost that. I kind of lost it because, like that lion example, I went on a detour, and then that detour caused me to lose a bit of faith in myself. And now I come back to it, and now I'm doing what I like to do. Like for example, for me, I feel like you're plugging me in with electricity when I'm on camera, when I'm presenting, doing stand-up comedy, podcast. That's how I feel. So I'm now living like the lion was meant to live, like I'm doing what's natural to me. So I think for a lot of people, they just lack that belief and trust in themselves.
And the detour might have been necessary as well because it gives reference points.
True.
If we don't have a reference point, we don't have something to compare it to, then we don't know what we're missing out on. We don't know what's on the other side. But if we go to the other side and now we come back here, we go, this is actually really good. But we needed that experience. So it's really hard to say what was actually the right decision or the wrong decision because it becomes this constant debate and both sides, no matter how you debate it, could be right. And with infinite possibilities of things, it's like it becomes something that's not worth the time to try to dive into. But instead, if we just look at it as everything that happens, we choose to give it meaning. If we don't judge things and we just look at things for what it is, life becomes a little more simpler. If we stop judging things as right or wrong, as good or bad, and it's just what it is, if somebody actually did that, then they don't need to think about, they don't have so much worries. They don't have the stress. And now it just becomes, what do I want? Okay. What do I need to do? Okay. Can I do it? Yes. Okay. Let me try. Let me do it. And then a day passed by. They didn't do it. What happened? I didn't do it. Why? This is the reason. Okay. What do I want to do? I want to do that. Okay. And then they just go and try to do it. And if they didn't do it, they look and see what happened.
But then you ask why you want to do it. Because like, what do you want to do? Okay, got that. But why do you want to do that? Do you ask that question?
Once we have an understanding of the why, we don't need to judge the actions that we do. We understand why, but the why in reality is just for our mind to be able to have an understanding. If we use our mind as a way to be able to decide on what we do, then we aren't following who we really are, because our mind will say all kinds of stuff. But when we let our higher self decide, when we let our soul decide, our authentic self, and we know that this is the right thing, then we understand the why afterwards.
I see.
There's a diagram in my mind that I'm seeing. It's like a triangle, to where it's like on one picture, it's like this, it's like a triangle like that. And then it points on the bottom, and on the bottom is spirit or soul, and then here is the body and here is the mind. And people are leading their life with their mind and their body, and their spirit is on the bottom. And so therefore they are making all decisions from their mind and body. So life becomes very, very confusing, and they're always having to write out pros and cons, and they don't know what's right and wrong. One day it's right, the other day it's wrong. But if they flip this around and they let their spirit, they let their soul, there is a difference, but that's another subject I don't want to dive into too deep. If they let's say they let their soul to go ahead and decide, their mind and body is still part of the operation, but they're not the ringleader anymore. They're almost like they're the assistants, they're the helpers, they're the power behind it. But the person that's going that direction, that should be our soul. That's how we live a more authentic life. That's how we understand what our purpose actually is. And we can all live this way. But the fundamental thing that it really takes is to be able to quiet down our mind and heal our bodies, release all the stuff in our bodies. The first thing to do is to understand that we are not our body and our mind. And when somebody tries to do that, what happens is they will think about that, and then all the questions will come up, and they don't know how to answer the questions. So they may talk to somebody like you or talk to somebody like me, and we give them an answers to it. And they go, wow, that makes sense right now. Great. Next day, the questions come up again, and you're not there. I'm not there, and they can't answer it. So now they're confused. So that method isn't the most effective. It helps, gives them a little bit of light, but it helps. What they need to do is they need to sit and clear their mind. So they need to do different practices. So they can do flow training. They can go and do yoga. They can do all kinds of stuff. They just need to accomplish the outcome of their mind being silent and their body being at peace. And then from there, they start to experience who they are behind their mind, who they are behind all of the stuff in their body. And now when they hear somebody talk about these things, they will be able to pay more attention to it. They believe it because they have experience of it. Not because not because it makes sense. That's the thing. People spend so much time, and I can't blame them. I did too for a long time until I came to this realization. People spend so much time learning about this stuff, but they don't do the practices that actually allow them to experience it. And the one thing to do is to silence their mind and to get their body to be at peace. But they don't spend enough time, and they think that they just need to listen some more, watch a little more, learn more, and they will experience what it is that they are wanting to experience, that they will come to a realization of some sort, epiphany. And why? Because our mind is so powerful and we just need to change our mind, and then our mind can control our body. Mind over matter, right? That whole thing like that. Well, technically it's true, but that's not how it actually works. We don't do things because our mind says to do it. We do things because we feel like doing it. And when we are doing things that we don't feel like doing, but we still do it, we are constantly forcing ourselves. And we don't last for very long forcing ourselves.
So this is interesting. So what comes up as you say that is, you were a bodybuilder. So I'm sure there were times where you just didn't feel like working out. So so does that apply to that as well? Because you weren't feeling like working out, but you still did it.
Yeah, it does. So what happens when we force ourselves to work out and we don't feel like working out, right? We force ourselves to do something we don't feel like doing. Well, remember, there's two things when this happens. We can either be forcing ourselves because this is something that we need to do, and we came to that realization already, and therefore we don't let the body dictate our action. Or we realize we don't need to do this, but we don't realize it. We don't need to do it, but we have not realized it. And our body is saying, no, this is not good. And then we force ourselves. So the outcome is still forcing ourselves. The only thing is one of them is going to lead us to the right place and the other one doesn't. But they're both force, right? We're both forcing. If, let's say, you decided you need to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, but you don't wake up at 6 usually. You wake up at 9. Now you got to wake up at 6. You're forcing yourself. You wake up at 6, the alarm goes off. You listen to your body. How's my body feel? Does not want to wake up, right? So you force yourself to wake up. But when you made this decision to wake up at 6, you knew it was the right thing to do. And so you do it. And now you wake up at 6 and your life unfolds to be better. You feel better. You create the outcome that is more aligned with what you really want. But you had to force yourself in the beginning to reestablish this new habit. And then now the other flip side of the story, you wake up at 6 a.m., right? And you wake up at 6 a.m. Why? Because you heard that all successful people wake up at 6. But there's actually things that you do really late at night that you feel very inspired to, that you really love doing. You know, you're a painter and you paint at night. You listen to music, you just get into your zone and you just paint. But you can't do that anymore because you got to wake up at 6. So then you wake up at 6 a.m. every single morning. And over time, you don't get enough painting in. But you're striving to go and make money because you found out that painting doesn't pay the bills. Making money does. But then, so you wake up at 6 a.m. every day. But you start to feel like you don't want to wake up every morning. And your life is not turning like the way you want, but you are waking up at 6 a.m. You see, so on both of these things, they're both people waking up at 6 a.m. and they're both having to force themselves to wake up at 6. But the outcome can be very different. The second one, this person, maybe they woke up at 6 because they felt that they really needed to because they wanted to go ahead and make money. And that's important. But if they were to go and listen to themselves, maybe what inside themselves, it goes, you need to follow what you're really passionate about. And that it means you need to continue painting. And you feel inspired to paint at night because the world is quiet. Somehow the darkness really inspires you. You need to stay up, which means you can't wake up at 6, which means that job that you wake up for or the schedule that you created at 6 a.m., you need to push that thing to 9. And maybe you don't make as much money, but you don't want to not paint anymore. You don't want to stop that. That is part of you that you need to experience. But this person will come to this realization when they connect to themselves. But if they were to go ahead and listen to their logical mind goes, painting us, you don't have the luxury to go ahead and have fun right now. You know, you need to go ahead and work your ass off. And then when you make enough money and you have financial security and you get your shit together, then go ahead and paint all you want. and we'll even buy you a great studio. But until then, stop dreaming. Stop wasting time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Wow.
And that is the rhetoric in the business world online. It's like, I remember this one guy, he was selling this coaching program, and he said, I really like the guitar. I like to do a lot of things, but I need to make money. So the guitar needs to go. And it's like what you said earlier about the sacrifice. So you sacrifice all the things that make you, like you enjoy doing, to do something that you're only doing for the outcome. And then that whole process, you become miserable. Like, I've been through that process and it's not fun. It's like literally just sacrificing all the things I like to achieve something that I think is going to make me happy.
Yeah. See, in this case, a person needs to make money, but playing guitar, they really, really enjoy. So maybe they find a middle way to where they play guitar and they still get it in, but maybe not as much because they need to go and spend some more time making money. They find a middle ground. So they don't let go of their inspiration. They don't let go of that part of them that inspires them. Because they may not even realize it, but playing the guitar gives them the inspiration that actually they end up working better. It makes them more happy. It's a way for them to release stress. It's a way for them to connect to themselves. It's a way for them to experience certain emotions that they all need for work. But that requires having to go ahead and understand themselves. And if they don't understand themselves and they have a narrow point of view, then they just see, I work, make money, guitar, waste of time. Doesn't make me money. What do I need to do? Make money. You see, it's so robotic and so structured, box thinking, And again, people are opening up their minds now. The things that are happening in the world with all the corona stuff, is it bad? I think most people agree, but it's also necessary. Why is it necessary? It's the most craziest thing. If we look at the effect of what it creates, it allows people to start to wake up. We need things to challenge ourselves, to wake up, to grow. This thing has created a lot of opportunities while it shut down some and it created others. So again, nothing is really good or bad. We just need to let go of the judgments of it and just see it for what it really is. This is what's really happening. And when it comes to something like this, and somebody needs to find a way to operate in the middle because they can't let go of not working, But again, all of this isn't the absolute way for someone to operate. Because if we go, so what we're saying, somebody will conclude that they need to have passions that they're excited about. And they also need to work. They should never go all out and work. No, that's not what I'm saying. What? That's not, you just said middle way. This is how it becomes confusing. You see, I came to this realization that we can't just say this is the way it works because everybody is in a different part of their life and they're all very different and who knows what the heck they're actually here to do. There's only one person that they know and it's them. And it's behind, then them is behind their mind and body. So only they can really find the true answers, but they need to silence down their mind and their body so they can connect to that true answer. And maybe a person's answer is right now, even I'm forcing myself, but this is what is really needed. Not because my mind is saying it, because I've come to a place of clarity and I still got the same thing. I need to work my ass off and work 16 hours a day for the next 6 months. It just feels like the right thing. Then go do it. And then a person who's like seeing this person, going through all this and they're losing weight and all this stuff, they're like, oh man, you need to chill out because, all the infinite reasons. But this person is following what is true inside of them. And they come to a moment of clarity and they keep checking in to just make sure things aren't changing. And it's still the right thing. We can't say it's wrong. That's the thing. So then when a person's hearing this, the takeaway that I want them to actually get is that there's only one person that knows the truth to how a person should live. And it's themselves behind their mind and body. Everybody else can be ideas and inspirations and can help point the way. But the ultimate decider of that is inside of them. And if they connect to that, they will always do the right thing for themselves. If they don't connect to it, they'll always have doubt and be lost. They'll do their best, but they can't be connected to the right thing for them. You know?
And when you started Six Pack Shortcuts, you weren't connected to this, would you say?
When I sold Six Pack, or when I made the decision to do it, and even after, I was in that place. I was beyond just that place. There was a state to where I didn't need anything. And so therefore I knew that the decision was right. And it wasn't just one confirmation, it was confirmation after and after and after. And even during the time that I was in the process of exiting, so it was a whole year, I started to be able to recognize when I am thinking through fear versus when it is me, when it is actually my authentic self, my true self talking. We start to be able to recognize the difference in our voice, in our head. We can do that. We start to be able to recognize, and now this fear doesn't come through the back door and sneak up on us, and we think it is our true self talking. We start to be able to recognize the voice. We start to recognize the way that is spoken. But this takes practice. And over time, I was able to start to recognize it. And then I can tell when I'm in a state of fear, and that right now I just need to avoid the thoughts, like not listen to it. I can't shut it off right now, but I don't need to believe it. So It becomes that annoying roommate in my head.
So you suffer less.
And make less bad decisions, so to speak.
But when you started your company, you were in fear. Is that right? You were in that fear-based mindset.
Definitely.
Of feeling not enough. You know, I'm going to prove it to all these people.
Right.
Prove it to myself also.
Right.
What do you think about that? Like real quick about proving it to yourself. I mean, you touched on the fact that nothing's good or bad. So if someone has that drive to prove to themselves that they can do this thing, what's your thoughts on that?
So somebody has a drive that they need to prove it to themselves. That doesn't dictate whether or not it's the right thing or the wrong thing. It can be the right thing. Maybe it's the wrong thing. So the fact that we're in a state of lack, that doesn't actually define what is right and wrong in our life. I believe that when I built Six Pack, it was precisely the right thing for me to do, even though I was operating in a state of lack, even though it was completely fear-driven. I had the best intentions, but honestly, it was still fear-driven that led me down how everything else expanded. But it was the right thing. And that's the thing is, sometimes if we're fear-driven, how do we get out of the fear-driven state to realize that it's the right thing if we're in a fear-driven state? It's almost like contradicting. It kind of doesn't happen, you know? So then what happens if somebody is doing something and they know that they're fear-driven and do it, but they can't stop the fear? And they're asking themselves, is this the right thing to do? You know? Well, so they need to realize that there is no right thing or wrong thing. There are a lot of other things that they probably could do. And just like we talked about that lion example, if this was the right thing, but they don't do it, and then they go do something else, that something else would still give them a effect that they needed to feel in their body. Here's an analogy. We go through a relationship. You date a girl, and then you guys date for a year, then y'all break up. And then you broke up for some reason, and then you feel a certain way in your body. Then you go date another girl, and then you date for another year, and then you break up. And then you feel very similar in your body. Probably the breakup style was kind of similar type of fights and debates. And then so this happens another 3 times. Could we say that it was because of those specific girls that those things happened? Or can we say that it was because of us and that wasn't really based on the girl that we experienced the things that we experienced? Now, the girls were different, but the way that we respond to situations, the way that we see things is dependent on us, not the situation. So therefore, if it was a different opportunity, we would experience the opportunity very similar, even though it's a different opportunity. Because if we haven't changed and we needed to learn a certain lesson, we will still learn certain things with a different opportunity. You see? Because we have the same struggles inside. We still have the same things we need to deal with. So whether or not we are dealing with this opportunity or that opportunity, the way we experience things will still be very similar because it's still us experiencing it. The outcome of things will be different. It's a totally different job. I got into real estate, versus fitness. Totally different thing. But when something bad happens, how do I feel? I feel like, oh man, this is not going to be good. I'm so mad. What am I going to do? I need to go in and strive really, really hard. I'll experience that in real estate and I'll experience that in fitness. And then when it happens really well, what happens? Oh man, I'm the shit. Yeah, and I'm going to strive and build a bigger company and expand more houses, more fitness products, more customers, more money. You see, totally different business, but the way we experience it is still very similar. Therefore, we are still needing to learn the same lessons.
It's that desire that creates the lack, the massive amount of desire, just creates that massive gap. And the feeling, it's like you're achieving so much to escape a feeling. I was speaking with my clients about this, and he's an entrepreneur and he's trying to achieve so much because without the achievements, he feels like shit. He feels worthless. And again, not enough, right? And that's a common entrepreneurial story. So my whole thing, I asked you this earlier, I was like, if we don't create from fear, how are we going to have the hunger to create? Like, is that enough hunger to create from love? Is that enough to achieve all of these things?
The point of it is not the achieving. You see?
Or the drive to do something.
We will do what is needed. So the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, it's right there. Tao Te Ching. It's a book. It's somewhere there. Yeah.
All right. So if we were to flip to a certain page, I'd be like, yeah, if you flip to page 77, paragraph 3. Nah, just kidding. I don't know it like that. But there's a line in the Tao to where I always remember. I think about this line. So when he said that, I think about this. It's a simple line. It's basically saying, when the work is done, stop. There's more to this verse, but that line, such a simple thing. When the work is done, stop. So when we go, I want all this, well, it doesn't matter what we want. What needs to be done? What needs to be done? I need to go ahead and get this product out to 10 million people. That's what needs to happen. Okay. If we feel that's what needs to happen, then do that. This will be 10 million sales. This will be $100 million business. Okay. That's what needs to be done. Then keep going until you're done. But if it doesn't need to be that and it's something different, then we do what is needed. But when we look at it in that perspective, we look at it not in the sense of, what do I want to gain for myself? No, I'm already fulfilled. I'm not operating in a state of lack. I'm fine. I'm not in survival mode. So now when I am fine, what actually needs to happen? Now and then we go ahead and look at it with clarity instead of looking at it as what I can gain. There's like 3 perspectives that we can operate from. We can operate from self-centered. Everything's about me. So I'm here to help you, but really I'm helping you so I can help me. You see, self-centered. What can you do for me? What can this situation do for me? The next one we can say is community-centered. That means it's about my people, my team, my community, right? Us against them. So we expand a little bit more. We have a little more love. We care a little more about others, but not fully because you're not like me. If you're not my team, then I don't give a shit about you. And then we have the world-centered, which is more where our consciousness is, where our care expands out all the way. And we go, I care about everybody. And I do my best to go ahead and create a win across all. Do my best. It doesn't happen. But there's an intention. And when I'm deciding and making choices, I actually think about what is the ripple effect of what I'm doing, not just for my gain, not just for my community gain, but for everybody else as well. And maybe I can say even for all living beings, not just all people, but all living beings, the insects and the animals and the plants and this planet. So when we think about it in that way, it changes what we do. We don't look at it as, how am I going to go ahead and have enough desire to, it's not even about desire. What needs to be done? So let's say I have a worldview. This is what's happening in the world. What needs to be done? This needs to be done. And if this happens, it will affect the world in this way. Does that need to be done? Yes. Okay. Do it. And now it changes. On the outside, we look at it, this person working hard, and the other person goes, I need to have enough desire so I can make $1 million business. It looks very similar. But you start to have conversations, you start to see how they think, and you realize that they are operating in very, very different worlds. But on the outside, it looks very similar. And when they achieve things, without diving into details, it also kind of looks similar sometimes. And it's, but what's really be affected is the way that they do things. The self-centered person will do things different than a world-centered person, even if they're doing the same thing. They're both selling the same product, but the outcome of it is very different. The way they approach it is very different.
Their intention is different, right?
Yeah.
And people can feel that. Yeah. Your intention is everything. I was just listening to Oprah Winfrey talk about that. Like, there's a book called The Seat of the Soul, and she was in the book talks about like the intention behind what you're doing is the most important thing.
It's like a purplish blue book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was going to talk to you about the decision that you and your partner Natalia have made to have a home birth, and I don't really know of anyone who's having kids in this day and age that are choosing to have home birth. Most of my friends who are having kids, they are having C-sections. So I just want to touch on that real quick. On what was your mutual decision to have a home birth versus the normal way?
So the decision was very obvious. There was not much of a discussion. It was like a very obvious thing. Like, we're gonna have a home birth, right? Yeah, of course. That was it.
Right.
And there's when we think about that, this being my first, so there's there can be a lot of what ifs, but that's just also just like anything else we do for the first time.
Yeah.
And ultimately we go back into some primary questions. Do I trust myself? Do I trust myself to be able to handle what needs to be handled? Do I trust myself to be able to do my part of it? Because I am going to be very involved. And am I okay with whatever happens? There could be so many other things. The insurance plan may not be as secure as if I was to be in a hospital. So all of these things, and it's great you brought that up, because this experience can be a very, very life-changing experience, not just because of having a child, but the actual process for myself and also for Natalia. But it takes us having to have a level of self-trust, a level of confidence, and to know that it's not like we studied our butt off. I haven't read a single book, and I've had like 2 sessions with a doula, and that was it. So I don't know much, but there's just a sense of whatever happens, I'm okay with it. But also deeper inside, is there's a inner knowing within myself that everything's going to be fine. There are so many other preparation stuff that I could be doing. Plenty. I know a few of them. But if I listen to myself inside, I know that things are going to be fine. And see, this is the thing, is if I go in my mind, not into my authentic self, into my mind and go, well, how do you know? And then now I come up with 5 reasons. And then the other side will come up with 5 reasons. And then now who's right? It becomes anybody's, guess now. But if I go, I'm not going to operate in that way. I'm going to decide, and then I'll let my mind figure out the details. And so my decision is I'm going to do it this way. We're going to do the home birth like this, and everything's going to be fine. I will study what I need to study when I feel it's time to go and study certain things. And that's it. Everything will be fine. And then now my mind will go, okay, well, based on that decision, okay, I think we should do this and maybe do this and do this. Okay. But you see, my mind will support my decision, but I don't let my mind decide. The way that we know who's deciding is we learn how to listen to ourselves. We learn how to listen to our soul. One way to do it is to listen to the inner voice. Some people go by inner voice. It's like a small voice that is so low in volume that if we are speaking in our head, like we're thinking, it drowns out the low voice. We can't hear it. Another person may experience it as a direct knowingness. So they don't actually hear a voice. There's just a knowingness of what to do, like an instant knowing, like this is what I need to do, and here's the reason why. It can come in as a whole full understanding with details and everything. For some people, it comes in as a visual, a whole blueprint plan and all of that. And some just has a knowingness of a simple yes or a simple that way. That's it. So people will experience it differently. From my experience and from what I've learned is that the more that we listen to our true self and actually take action on it, not just hear it, but actually take action on it, the clearer the connection is, the clearer the communication comes through. And the more we can hear that inner voice, the more that we are hearing our knowingness, the more that we are connected to our intuition. And then now it allows us to have more, to be more sure that what we are hearing is the right thing because it's more clear. But it takes a lot of times that first time, that second time, that third time to almost just blindly trust. It's like you would sit and go, I swear, I think I need to go this way, but I really don't know because my mind is still kind of noisy. But there's just a tiny little speck of knowingness of this way, even though it doesn't make sense. And then now we're having a debate. If we debate too much, we may not do it. But if we go at this point, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Do I want to go there and tap into that inner self? Yes, but I don't know if it's the right one right now. Well, if it's the wrong one, it's the wrong one. I got this. I'm 20 years old. I'm 30 years old. I'm 40 years old. I'm 60 years old. I made it this far. I got this. Doesn't matter. I'm just go for it. They go for it, and then they don't know if it's the right one. Because it's not like you go through the door, ding, right one. No, things are just going to unfold. But you trust that you took action on what you thought was the best. When I say you can say maybe it was the soul, maybe it's the mind. We don't know. But we just trusted that it was our soul. Okay. And then we're now listening more. And then now it says, go this way. Kinda. All right, I'm going to go that way. And then over time, suddenly one day, it comes in clear, yes to this. We're like, whoa. We're like, yes to that. One day it just starts to happen more and more. But how many actions did it take to get to that one day to where it suddenly became a loud yes that was different than your thinking? Maybe it was 2-3 times. Maybe you had to do it 7-8 times. And then suddenly you got a clarity one day. and you're like so happy. Whoa, yes. And then that next action, eventually fast forward it. Now you're getting downloads to where you don't even have to go ahead and try to get into a meditative state. You just start kind of staying plugged in all the time. You use your mind, and then when you're not thinking, you just kind of come present, and then you just hear a yes here, do this, and now it just becomes part of your way of deciding, the way you just live, to where you're connected to both. You're listening to your mind, and you're also able to hear your soul at the same time. It's just that when your mind is too loud, you will realize it's too loud, and then you shut it down, and then this comes up, and you're operating here. You're like, okay, I need to figure out the details of this decision. And then you're in here and you're here. Just kind of switch. You just kind of balance it out. Kind of like if you're rolling, you're doing jiu-jitsu and you realize you're going too hard, you just soften it up right away. And then you realize you're too soft. You just harden it up. And you just kind of dance, right? So this is where people say it's just like a dance in life. But we start to do that. It just takes practice. That's what happens. The way I operate now is exactly that. I can't say I'm always intuition. Everything is always knowingness. No. Sometimes I'll sit there and go, uh-oh, I don't know what to do. And I'll go, okay, maybe I'll do it this way, maybe I'll do it this way. And I realize I don't have an answer here. Let go. And I just let go with no answer. And then I just wait. Sometimes no answer comes. Okay, cool. Then that means I'm just not going to do anything. Or I just do whatever is best. And then suddenly, fast forward it 3 days later, the answer comes in. Okay. And then now I go strongly. Before, I might have been tiptoeing in that direction. The answer comes in to go strong because it's the right thing. Then I just go strong. So we just kind of learn how to deal with it,
And so, yeah, that inner trust in yourself is like a recurring theme in your life, which helps you make these decisions, and you're not judging whether it's right or wrong because you have that context on the decision that you're making. That's if it's wrong, and it's going to lead me to a better place anyways. Like the 6-pack shortcuts, it wasn't wrong because it led you here.
Mm-hmm.
So in hindsight, looking back at it, it wasn't a bad decision. Even if you thought it wasn't, even if there was a part of you that thought it was a bad decision, or maybe you didn't even think that anyway, because we don't think that, do we? We were like, I want that fucking $1 million, like I want 15K a month in your case.
I saw it as clear as day on how it was exactly what was needed.
Yeah.
Exactly. It gave me the information. Absolutely, it gave me the experience, everything that led me to be able to figure out the things that I figured out now.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there's no regrets.
No
regrets about anything in your journey.
No, not at all.
It's powerful because there's a lot of people out there that do regret things in their life. People that they were with, businesses they started, business partners they worked with. But there is no regrets, is there?
We can get into the state to where we let go of all regrets. But it's not something that we try to do. If we try to do it, we can't do it just because we try. It's like love. It happens, and you can't try to love. But when we do, when it's necessary, all the things we talked about and letting go and clearing all the stuff, regrets becomes something that we let go.
Powerful, yeah. So is there any closing statements you want to share with people? Anything that we missed, do you feel like?
Well, I think we covered a lot, I think the biggest takeaway is, there's something we didn't cover, and we're not going to dive into it, but I want to leave people with this. Have it to be a last nugget. Now, this one might be deep for some. People are always wanting to be somebody different, or they want to be a better version of themselves. Here's something interesting. When we stop trying to be better, either be better to be another person, or to be a better version of ourselves, which makes us feel more righteous, all right? But we let go of that too. Then we actually become that version that we wanted to be. We become that version because we accept the way that we are now. And by accepting, we changed. We couldn't change by changing. We only changed by accepting.
That's a deep one. And I'm thinking about that. And it's true, because if we're constantly trying to force things instead of just accepting.
Like, let's say a person wants to be confident. So they want to be confident because they know how good their life will be to be confident. So they want to be confident. They try to look confident. They try to sit and stand and talk with confidence, wear confident looking clothes, do their hair. And the act of trying to be confident, doing all they can to be confident, is a lack of accepting the way that they are at this moment, not confident. So they are constantly in a state of lacking confidence. And they don't accept the way they are. So they're constantly trying. So now this person goes, okay, you know what? I don't care about confidence anymore. I don't care if I look confident. I don't care if people think I'm not. I don't care if I appear to be this and that. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to just do what feels good at the moment and let it be, whatever it is. And so by doing that, they act confident. But they don't even care to be. But by not caring, they act confident.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yes, we'll leave with that one.
Yeah, just like accepting where you are right now in your life.
That's the power of acceptance. I came into that realization recently, and specifically in that way. Acceptance is a big thing. It's a big topic for people in the personal growth space and all that. But I've never heard it presented in that way. And when I realized that within myself, it was like an epiphany. I was like, right, of course, this is, and then everything else that I've heard all just gels together and it creates this understanding. And so it's a very, that is very, it's such a powerful lesson. I share these things and I think about these things in this way because something that I wished that I learned more of on this process was the specifics, because this is the way my design works. I like to see things in very, 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 very specific ways, the little fine detail way. And because that allows me to be able to change. That's my personal way and the way I function. Some people don't need to operate in that way, but for me, it does. So I'm always looking. So when someone's very broad about something, and I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but I have 10 questions from there. And once you answer those 10, I got another 10. I want them to answer all the things that I have questions on. And the questions that I haven't even thought about because I don't know enough to ask that question. But I want them to tell me that, because that thing is going to be the key thing that I need to make the change, to do the action. But if they don't tell it to me and I don't know it, it'll take me a long time to come to that realization. So for me, because I search for it, when I come to realizations like that, like, whoa, this is what they need to hear. And a lot of times it's very different than what is spoken about. I try to broadcast it and put a big spotlight on it. Because maybe there is a person out there that if they heard it in that way, it would give them a realization of some sort, get them to understand it in just a slightly different perspective that is just enough to click, to get them to experience what I'm actually saying. So that's why I think about things in very complex, like very deep perspective ways, to look for another way to say the same thing, another way to go ahead and create the same outcome. This thing that I'm leaving with, when we stop trying to be somebody else, we stop trying to be confident, stop trying to look better, stop trying all this stuff, we become a different person. We become the thing that we are wanting to be. Because the actual transformation wasn't because we were trying to be that. The actual transformation was because we accepted the way we are. And that is the transformation that changes us.
Amen.
Amen.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to end on that note. And wow, so much golden nuggets in this episode from Mr. Mike Chang, one and only Mike Chang. You can follow him. I'll link in the show notes where you can follow him, where you can get all the information on his programs and everything else. And Mike, thank you for coming on and giving us your time. 3 hours. This is going to be, I think it's going to get a lot of views, this one.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much. Cheers.